Yo, how's it going, everyone? It is time once again for the latest episode of the Slot 1 Super Podcast. We are back. Apparently my camera, there we go, is back for episode 38. And we are here with a very special guest this week, as you can see. We have me, the Masked Ningen. We have my fellow two co-hosts, as always. My boys Theo, aka Dokkan Assets, and Minato's Flash. And you can see him down there. Look at that. The live camera footage from inside the home of our special friend over here in the bottom right, our boy TOONRAMI. So how is everyone doing this evening?
I've been told I'm not allowed to do a Ningen impression, so I'm a little sad. But otherwise, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's very sad. It was very awesome. Chat, you guys missed it, but I promise you, it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was fire.
No.
So I'm now the leader in terms of guests, right? This is my second time on the...
Yeah, that is true.
Podcast, right?
Toon being the first person to be a guest on the podcast twice.
That's
so there you
true.
go. How do you feel about this honor, Toon?
Feel about that.
I love you guys. This is always in the plan. This is always part of the master plan.
So there you go. So we are here. We've got a decent few things to talk about as we've moved solidly into part 2 of the Golden Week celebration. So, of course, the big main topic for the week is the part 2 LR, which, of course, was revealed to be LR Ultimate Gohan. Funnily enough, when I woke up the day that it was announced, it was a tweet from Theo. I mentioned it in my video because we talked about it literally on last week's episode, and he tagged me in a tweet saying, Masked Ningen, you were right, because we talked about...
Oh, yeah, I did do that.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Because, yeah, we had talked about on the previous episode our final speculation for the Part 2 LR. And obviously I had mentioned the fact that that Goku art comes from the promo art with Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks and Gohan. So we talked about the possibility of them being the Part 2 LR, although it was more in the context of it being like a Gohan and Gotenks. Whereas, of course, the unit ended up just being an Ultimate Gohan, which is probably ultimately better for like the links and categories.
Ultimately,
See what I did there? It's better for the categories and the links and stuff like that. So, yeah, Gohan was revealed as the Part 2 LR. So I want to approach this from a couple of different angles, because obviously we have me and Toon are the global boys. Minato, I imagine, will have used him in some JP content. So before we get into talking about how the unit is, first off, how do we feel about him as the pick for the Part 2 LR? And then we'll let Theo talk to us about the animations, because I've seen I've seen mixed responses is probably an understatement at this point, right? So Toon, as the guest, I'll let you go first. What did you think of the pick of Ultimate Gohan with the sort of guest appearance of Gotenks and a little bit of Piccolo in there? What did you think of the pick for him as the Part 2 LR?
So my philosophy has been give characters with less representation, more units, more shine. So this directly conflicts with that, because I have no dog in this race, because Majin Buu Saga is not my favorite, but I would have wanted a Gotenks or a Kid Buu LR, because neither one of those has an LR. Kid Buu, as we all know, is like one of the biggest jokes in Dokkan, because Kid Buu never gets a unit. So I wanted it to be one of them. So the simple fact that Gotenks is now relegated to a Link super attack, kind of a shaft for all Gotenks fans. And then what the hell, Piccolo? Like, why even bother putting him in the art? He doesn't even get to do anything. So I just feel bad for those who wanted some of those more obscure characters, which is crazy to call them obscure. So I think having another LR Ultimate Gohan right now, kind of a duty thing, but I don't have a dog in this race. He's a fun unit to run, so I'm still happy. But yeah, it should have been one of those.
Yeah,
We don't have a standalone Piccolo from Majin Buu Saga.
I did know that, actually. That is kind of crazy to think about.
I was going to say, at least Piccolo is in the intro, at least. But
Yeah, but
He literally says, "Look, it's Gohan."
That's literally
so
probably
weird.
why he doesn't do anything, because there's one other card that's the Gotenks and Piccolo card that would even matter on the Majin Buu Saga team, which is where this character is intended to run on.
Yeah.
So that's maybe why they didn't give him one, but
yeah.
it's still weird, you know.
So Minato, what did you think of his pick as the Part 2 LR? I know, as Toon said, a lot of people were hoping that the meme would finally end and that we'd get an LR Kid Buu, but here we are, LR Ultimate Gohan.
I mean, I think that I would have wanted ideally LR Kid Buu would have been really great. Like a slot 1 LR Kid Buu would have been really cool. But unfortunately that's not what we got, you know. We got this LR Ultimate Gohan, which I think is fine, right? I mean, I personally am a fan of Gohan just in general. So I definitely wouldn't say no to it. I feel like, you know, probably a Gotenks would have been better just because Gotenks doesn't really get a lot of characters, but I guess to be fair, this is the best character in terms of a character that we wouldn't get like another form of representation for, because although we got Tech Ultimate Gohan, his EZA, we don't have like they're not sharing the same name.
Yeah.
While at least on JP we have the Super EZA for Tech Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks. We have the Super EZA on both versions for Physical Kid Buu upcoming. We'll talk about that later, right? But like those characters, like I Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks is already pretty good. Kid Buu's likely going to be really good if he's on the same level as the existing Super EZAs. So the same name could have potentially conflicted there. And Ultimate Gohan is the only like choice where I want to have conflicted with like some Super EZA or anything like that. Unless like Int Gohan, they could have given Int Ultimate Gohan his Super EZA, right?
Yeah.
But that's really it from there. I would have preferred Kid Buu, but I'm not like a no to the choice, because you know I feel like in terms of animations we could have definitely gotten a new Ultimate Gohan from the Buu Saga with like different upgraded animations, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people like it's not just that Kid Buu is a meme as well. I think it's more so the fact again that people really want Extreme to actually get buffs, you know, from time to time. So having the Part 2 LR being another superclass unit, obviously we are getting the Kid Buu Super EZA, but I mean, it could have been, you know, the LR could have been like a standalone Buuhan, and then we still get the Kid Buu EZA, and then that'd be some massive buffs again for these Extreme teams. But
I know that people were saying like a Hercule character, where he's like Bulma from last year, where he's like a mecha support. But then
that could be
maybe he gets buffs with like Majin Buu on rotation. So it's like you run him specifically on the extreme class version of the Buu Saga team. But then it's like in that situation, even though it's not a Majin Buu, he's like a super mega powerful, like slot 1 kind of character that's supporting both rotations. Could be really interesting, but that's not what they did. So
that's another thing with Kid Buu, because Kid Buu is a big bad boss from turn 1, which is a pretty big deal when you consider the fact that no Majin Buu Extreme character has that ability right away. Buu Tanks is the only one that gets big bad bosses after transforming into Buuhan, and there is no real Buuhan character from turn 1 that people would like to use unless they want to take a chance with the Int Buuhan. So that's why Kid Buu, having a fully functioning relevant Kid Buu, really changes the dynamic of the extreme class like landscape. So it just seems like a missed opportunity.
Even like if they wanted to use a physical Kid Buu, give us a standalone LR Buuhan, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, just like how they gave us.
Even Buuhan would have been okay. It's technically the same character, so it kind of violates what my philosophy, but still, it's different, and it does exactly the same thing in terms of the big bad bosses like the Kid Buu. So yeah, that would have been cool.
I think villains should get like a little bit of a leeway there, because like even though we got like physical LR Buutanks' EZA, we haven't had a standalone Buuhan since Int Buuhan in 2017. So,
which is crazy, by the way. I actually can't believe that.
Still, right? Even though we got like the transforming Buus that transform into Buu Ultimate Gohan, like getting a standalone nude version of it, I think is a little different, if that makes sense, right? Because like even Ultimate Gohan, we got one from Superhero, but we still got one like in 2022 essentially. Well,
I mean, we don't even have a modern Ghost Kamikaze attack from Buuhan.
Like I think Buuhan could get like 3 more cards or something. Even there's a lot of stuff he does in the anime, especially. So
so yeah, I mean, like I kind of agree with what you guys said as well. Like it would have, I think we all would have preferred an extreme pick, but I know Theo, you're a Gohan guy. What did you think about him being the pick? And then why don't you lead us from that into a bit of the old animation analysis? Because like I said, I've seen some strong feelings about these animations in the community. So
all right, hold up, let's let Theo cook here.
So all right, so in terms of the pick, right? I still think like I don't know if I would say ironically enough, because I am a pretty big Gohan fan. I do like Gohan quite a bit. It's kind of funny considering what I'm about to say about the animations, but I like the LR overall. I think that Ultimate Gohan is definitely not a bad choice, right? And obviously from the logic of like following the art, right? Like with Ningen's prediction that he got right, it definitely makes sense. I still think that LR Kid Buu would have been a better choice, not to mention, you know, just obviously the meme finally dying, but just like Toon explained, it's like, it's not just the fact that Kid Buu is a meme, it's also the fact that like villains really need the help and really need the buff. And it's something that could just really be beneficial to the game overall. Now, with that being said, considering how the animations turned out, bro, I don't know if I would have wanted this to be a Kid Buu, but that'll lead me into the animations here. So this, honestly, like, it's always really interesting, right? Because of course, every new unit, I always take a deep dive into their animation. So it's always interesting seeing the community's like reaction to the animations, right? For sure. So I think that when this guy came out, I was really curious because this is probably one of the most decisive, like you said, like LRs in terms of how people felt about the animations that I've seen in a really long time. Because I feel like typically it's mostly one way or another where people are like, these kind of stink or these are really good. But this one was very 50-50. Like, there were people who were in the camp of like, yeah, these are awful. These are the worst things I've ever laid eyes on. And there were people who were like, yeah, they're fine. Literally, what are you talking about? So, with that being said, right, I thought that that was really interesting this time around. When it comes to my thoughts, so I gotta be honest, this was one of those units, right? When I go into my animation analysis videos, usually I have like a sort of like a, I guess you could say, a preconceived notion about the unit, right? From watching the animations a couple times through, you know, like before I actually do the video. And obviously it's just watching it normally, right? So I'm just watching it at like the regular one-time speed. And so I go into it with like, okay, this is my current mindset, right? Let's see how I feel about the animations by the end. And it's funny because sometimes when it comes to these animations, I feel much better about the animations after taking sort of a deep dive into them. And there's also cases, which unfortunately, old Gohan here was one of those cases, where after like really looking in deep about it, I feel like I feel less good about the animations after looking at like the logistics of it. I genuinely think that these animations, as sad as this is to say, are comparable to a 2020 unit. Because I was going back and I was like, that sounds like kind of wild to say, like, you know, just like without any context behind it. But the Fizz Blue Boys came out in 2020. That is a unit that released in 2020, and I think personally that their animations still hold up now, and I think that they are comparable, if not better, than this Gohan's. It was a lot of things that they did where it was basically like kind of like little things almost, where different ways things were animated and different jump cuts in the animation and different like posing changes between the character and everything. It felt like a lot of animation techniques that they used, like, you know, basically like back in 2020 and in previous years. A lot of people were saying this, and I know that obviously this isn't like the case because this isn't how the game works, but it definitely kind of felt like that they had these animations in the vault for a really long time.
I was just gonna say that.
Exactly. They had them like, you know, in storage on the hard drive for like, you know, years and years now. And they were like, all right, we finally got a Buu Saga. Grab those old Ultimate Gohan animations and, you know, release them real quick. That is like literally what it felt like. You know, again, that's not how game development works. So that's, I'm telling you, that's definitely not what happened. But all things considered, that's definitely kind of how it felt when it came to looking at these. So I will say, I think I am disappointed with them personally. The nice thing, I guess, to be fair with them, is that I know a lot of people use this. I don't want to say as an excuse, but I mean, I think from where I stand, a top third. No, I'm just kidding. But like, from my like perspective and my thought process, a lot of people say, oh, the animations will look fine on 2x speed, which is like, I understand that, and I certainly get that, because obviously, most people play the game on 2x speed, right? I mean, like, I play the game on 2x speed. But so I think, though, that making that as an excuse doesn't mean that it's a good animation. That almost makes it worse in my eyes, because then that means, okay, so you need to speed up the animation to make it good?
It's like, oh yeah, the animation is good when I can't see half of it.
Right, exactly. It's like, oh yeah, when the mistakes are, moving a mile an hour across your screen, then it looks good. It's like, okay. So I don't know. I never really found that like excuse to be a good excuse.
Because like the thing is that if like I understand if it's like an actual animation of like an anime where it's like there's gonna be in between frames, but that's not how Dokkan really would do things, right? Because it's not, because there are likely a lot of people like, again, it's a thing where in our community, right, where we all like are gonna be playing at 2x speed. I feel like there's probably lots of people out there that we don't even know about that are just very casual at the game that play in 1x speed as well.
True,
right?
Oh, I don't know.
That's true.
Like
I'm not sure.
When when you accidentally put it on ×1, then it's just so painfully slow. Like, does anyone actually play it like that?
Yeah.
Surely not.
But
I can tell you from personal experience, I played max volume, in-game music, 1x speed for like a month when I started Dokkan.
Oh man.
exactly.
All right, let's get some.
Especially someone who plays like, I don't know, once a week or something.
Yeah.
All right,
that's
chat.
true.
Chat ones or twos in the chat if you play it on ×1 or ×2 speed. Let's see what we have.
Everybody
That's what
here
I'm
is
saying.
playing
Everyone here is
2x.
going to
Come
play
on.
2x.
I'm just curious.
You know the point I'm making. The point I'm making is like the very casual. Everyone who's here is not a casual. Like, let's be real.
That's true. I mean, that's like we always talk about how, we always think that like, the like community that we interact with is the majority of people who play Dokkan. But realistically, there's so many people who just play the game, that just literally just play it because it was some random Dragon Ball game on the App Store, So
No,
I
I
honestly
agree.
wouldn't be surprised.
I suppose
But either way, though,
Yeah,
I mean,
what you guys
either
say?
way, it's like, I don't know, designing animations to work at 2x speed, I feel like is a little silly, because if it's usually good in both situations, unless there's like so much in the animation, like fifth year Blue Gogeta. There's like his animations move so fast even at 1x speed, then 2x speed that just kind of like so many things feel like skipped. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I feel like for me, when I guess maybe it is just because like I play it in 2x speed, but like I do disagree with Theo at least slightly. Whereas like for me, if I watch an animation on Twitter and it's like, oh, this looks a bit janky, but then in 2x speed, it's like, oh, actually it looks fine, then that's fine. I don't care. But then obviously I don't play it in ×1. But obviously it'd be much better if it looked good in both. But I think Gohan's was one of those examples where, not to speak of any of the quality, because I know some people had issues with some of the like frames, like I think with his active skill, like the angle of his face and stuff. I saw people complaining about that. But
that's like faithful to the manga.
Yeah, I saw somebody say that as well. They've done that a lot recently, haven't they? Because there's like the Tech Big Bang Vegeta. There was the face of Vegeta from the physical Buu Boys thing, where people are complaining, but it's like manga accurate. So, but no, I thought when I saw his animations on Twitter, that was kind of my thought. It's like, oh, some of these look a bit off, but maybe they'll look better in 2x speed, which I do think they do. But yeah, he certainly doesn't have like fantastic animations, but they're not terrible though. I think
when I first saw it, I'm like, they're fine. And then I went to the group chat with like Theo and everyone else is in there. They're like, they're all terrible bad. And I'm like, let me rewatch them. And then I rewatched them at 3 a.m. and I was like, oh, they kind of suck. And then I waited
3 a.m.
in game, yeah, because that night we had the details come out, but we also had the sub EZA details come out. So I did all my recording shenanigans until like 2, and then Garash was like wasn't gonna translate them, so I'm like, okay, so I had to translate all the sub EZAs and then record the video after. So I was up until 3, and then I watched the animations. So probably had the best time to rewatch it. But when I play Ultimate Gohan in game, I didn't really have an issue with his animations, like how when I originally first watched it. I'm not gonna say they're crazy, but I don't think they're like garbage, worst animations we've seen in years.
Yeah.
Like, people are acting like, I think they're fine animations.
It doesn't help that, unfortunately with the community, right? Like, even though, I do say that I think they're like 2020 quality, I don't think that they're the worst that I've ever seen, right? I would still think even this year we've had some stuff that was more stinky. But when it comes down to it, I know that unfortunately the community does love to over exaggerate on a lot of that type of thing. I mean, obviously, like, it doesn't help that, of course, like for the sake of the funny YouTube titles and thumbnails, sometimes we perpetuate it a little bit, for the sake of the content. But, I would say in general, unfortunately, it is definitely something that is just kind of commonplace in the community. With that being said, though, on the topic of the manga thing, that's why I always, when I do those animation analysis videos, I always these days, right? Because sometimes I used to just do it like right out the gate, where it would just be like, okay, I'm gonna post the video as soon as I can, because obviously then it will like do better, basically. But I kind of, at this point, I think I just care about like the quality of the video more than I do like the funny YouTube numbers of getting it up quickly. And so one thing that I always like to do is that I always like to make sure that on hand when I make the videos, I have the anime like comparison, right? There's a couple people in the community who do those like anime and manga comparisons to Dokkan nowadays. There's multiple people now, which is really cool, because before it was just Jihad was the one who did it. But either way, though, nowadays I always make sure that I have one of those on hand, because it gives a lot of context as to sometimes why animations look the way that they do, or if they look janky, or like you're talking about, right, with the faces type of thing, right? Where it's like, oh, this is why Vegeta's face looks so weird, or, like this is why, this, that, or the other thing, because obviously it's important to have the context behind it. And so I think also knowing that, right, is definitely something that I feel like is pretty important, because, then obviously it's like, okay, well, this wasn't to Dokkan's fault. This was to, the source material, right, is the reason why this looks like the way that it does. And so I think that's an important distinction to, like make, because it's like, well, I understand obviously being like, oh, Dokkan fumbled the bag, but if it's not their fault, then like, I don't want to blame them for something that, they literally like, it ain't on them. They're just following the source material. And sometimes it is kind of funny because they'll like follow the source material to a T in some animations, and then in other ones they'll basically just like try and improve upon what's already there. But it's weird because they pick and choose, like they don't do it one way or the other. It just kind of depends on the unit as to the way that they do it. So I don't know. Either way though, there you go, that's my TED talk.
But definitely.
The only thing I was just gonna say is like, it is kind of funny, I will say that man, I know we had that whole conversation on the podcast about the Ginyu Force LR, man. Like, compared to this guy for the Yellow Coin LR, obviously, I think that obviously Gohan's animations are more varied, but I would personally, I don't know, I think I'd put the Ginyu Force far above this guy, which is crazy to say, but
I mean, the Ginyu Force have a lot of styles to them, They're kind of
It's true, they do.
Yeah, they're kind of shit, bro. Literally, the Ginyu Force, it's funny that you say it like that. It's literally the view of like, yo, I didn't know you were chill like that.
But yeah, definitely a mixed bag when it comes to reactions for this guy's animation. So, but we'll go on to talk a little bit about his performance in game. Before we do that, obviously, just a quick reminder, if you guys want to help support the podcast, If you have any questions for us, any shout outs, obviously any questions specifically for Toon, our guest, anything like that, all donations and super chats will be read out at the end of the episode. So
Don't troll me, please. It hurts my feelings.
so when it comes to the unit's performance, I'll ask Toon to start us off because obviously he and I have the perspective only for the sort of global side of things, and then obviously Minato can tell us about his experiences with Gohan in the JP only content. So, well, I guess the other thing we could touch on, of course, before we talk about the actual in-game performance was how did everybody's summons go? Because of course there's a yellow coin banner, which of course now has the new pity system. Which of course not only do you get the coins for each multi that you do, you can also trade in all of your unneeded SSRs because you have them rainbowed already for extra pity coins. And I managed to get pretty lucky. Like I think I got so many multiple SSR multis that I didn't need. I ended up having to do a couple of singles at the end just to round it out, but it took me 475 stones to get to the pity. And in the process pulled 3 Gohans. So I got a 90% Gohan in 475
That's exactly what I did.
stones.
Yeah.
So that was very
I
good.
think
Guys,
if I had converted all of the SSRs, which now that I think of, I probably should have, I would have probably done it sooner because I got the 90% Gohan. No, wait. I got 79% through 600 stones, and then I picked up with the pity. But yeah, I could have probably got it like within 500 stones had I exchanged all the different like extra SSRs I had.
Yep.
But yeah, my luck was pretty good. And I have no desire to rainbow. I have no desire to go back in and summon. My summon desire has like completely just flatlined over the last couple banners.
Me too.
I mean, the thing is with a yellow coin banner, once you get to the pity and you've got that 1 copy guaranteed, like you probably should stop at that point.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like in general too, it's me. Like I'm a global whale, right? Yeah. I have a 69% Super Saiyan 3 Goku. I have a 79% Fat Buu. Like I just don't care about summoning right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much stuff upcoming as well, but
yeah.
I personally never really care about like rainbow characters or like even like getting multiple dupes and characters for most of them.
Yeah.
But even if it was like, a mega whale, like, like even like on that site like Truth or something, I probably would never like want to go that far. I just at most get like 2 copies of the characters or three copies of the characters for 79% at most.
Yep.
Just because I feel like it just like takes the value out of future banners.
Yeah, I think
quickly.
If there's a character that I really like, I will want dupes for them when they first come out, but like no more than 79%. Once you get 79% on the first banner, like I'll just stop.
That's about the limit.
Because if you rainbow them on the first banner, then as soon as they come back on the next banner, they're already another unit on that banner that you don't want to pull because you don't need them. So but obviously for me, it usually depends how many stones it takes to get the first one as to whether or not I'll try and get.
It sucks that that's even more the case now because Chain Battle is dead, so there's even less value in pulling extra copies.
Yeah, and one other thing is we know that for global, this Ultimate Gohan should be back on the worldwide banners if we go off last year, because Bulma was back on the worldwide banners.
Yep.
The reason for that is because they don't. JP will get the Carnival Anniversary LRs to return on those banners. I think global obviously will have barely
just come out.
So
and that's
we'll
the thing for global.
Brienne on one banner and Gohan on the other.
That's the thing as well for global players is the fact that, if a lot of us are, in that mindset of saving for the anniversary. So if you're going to be summoning for Gogeta or the Gammas, then of course for global, Gohan will be unfeatured in that banner. So if you're going crazy summoning for either of them, you might be able to get him along the way. Obviously he's not featured or anything, so you're not as likely to pull a copy of him, but yeah, Theo, how about you? What were your? Did you summon much for him? Or?
I did. I'm still summoning for him, actually.
No!
I know. Well, I'm going to pity because
that.
Unfortunately, I've only pulled, I think, 2 LRs in the whole summoning session. I don't remember how many stones I'm at. I'm definitely over 400. It's probably like 500, 550 something. I'll have to go back and look.
Yeah.
But I'm at like 169 coins, something like that.
Okay.
Something around there. So not too far. I'll definitely be able to like at least pity him by the time the banner goes away.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the only other 2 LRs that I pulled, I have both of them rainbowed, which was Tech Broly and Tech Riku. So I was like, come on, man.
Bro.
But either way, though, Yeah, exactly.
One
I was
thing-
just like, yeah, it'd be like that.
It happens to me with Carnival LR banners as well, but like, do you remember back when Legendary Summon banners, it was like there was like the main LR was like the only featured LR, and then they made the change where it's like now they all have 3 featured LRs. It's like a blessing and a curse, because the number of times I pull one of the other 2 featured LRs before I pull the new one.
Yeah.
I pulled 5 copies of Super Buu, and I think like 3 copies of 3Ku before I pulled the first Gohan. So yeah, got like a whole spare rainbow Super Buu basically. But yeah, so summons aside, we'll talk about.
Wait a minute, I didn't talk about my summons. That's crazy.
Did you? I thought you did. Well, actually, yeah, you
I
just
just
said that
put it
we
in
did
about
better
the
than you.
Yeah.
So, go on
What's
then.
it called? I mean, mine was branches is pretty quick. I did about 800 stones. I got 79%. I was like close to the pity, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go finish the pity anyways. Because initially I was just gonna go for 1 copy, and then I got 1 copy, and like I think my second like rotation where you have the guaranteed 3rd copy,
Yeah.
the guaranteed featured. I got Goku Black Rift. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I was like, you know, it's a pity banner. I just might as well go hit the pity. I'm a fan of Ultimate Gohan, so I decided to just pour in the rest of my stones into there, and then just hit the pity. And I think it wasn't even on the guaranteed featured step, but in the multi before my last one, ended up getting my 2nd copy of Ultimate Gohan, and I was like, okay, cool. Then I ended up getting Super Buu. And the multi after that, which was funny, but then I traded in the 79% copy for my coins, because I wasn't getting a lot of SSRs. I was 30 coins away, so I was like, okay, might as well do more in rotation, and that's where I got my other Ultimate Gohan, and so yeah, I got 79%, and I link leveled him 10 to 10 instantly with the link skill orbs. That's
Yeah,
what- that's
same.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool. That's a really good thing about the pity, because obviously if you do get that little bit of extra luck along the way, it means if you want that dupe, you're obviously still guaranteed that 1 copy at a certain amount of summons. So I do think that is because that's the thing, I got mine to 79%, which, as I just said when we were talking about summons, is all I really care about for when a unit first comes out. But I was like 30 coins away from getting the pity one. So it's like, well, at this point I might as well, because I don't need, all I can really do with these pity coins otherwise is exchange them into yellow coins, which I don't really need any of anyway. So it's always nice that even if you do manage to pull the unit, you manage to get that sort of like guaranteed dupe if you want to go to the pity as well. So that is pretty good.
I'm praying that happens to me, bro, because this banner is not really treating me well. I'm praying I get like an extra copy right before pity, just so it's like, you know, a little bit more worth it. But
yeah, that would be nice.
it's all right.
Also, yeah,
It's also
AC
interesting.
is right. Shout out to Global for the ticket packs, which were
Yep.
not
Oh,
only give you the 30 unit
God.
summon, but they also give you the 30 coins as well. So
That was horrible, man. That
Oh,
was
really?
that might be my worst ever paid ticket summon I've ever done.
Oh yeah, because
Dang.
you know that's why you guys probably took
Dude,
less
$80 down the drain.
because you guys also
Yeah.
have tickets, right?
that is
That's
true.
why I'm
That's a
like,
good
oh,
point.
why did it take you guys like 400 to 500 stones, and it took me
Yeah,
800?
I realized
like,
that,
the
and that's
tickets.
why I summoned more than I needed to. Because if I was aware of that, Dragon Ball fan moment, I would have converted those extra SSRs early, and then I could have probably been done like 500 stones.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
literally
I will say-
475 stones and the 2 tickets. So it's pretty good.
That's a W.
That makes a lot of sense then, because of the tickets giving you the extra 30
Yep.
coins or something you said, right?
Yeah, it's like 60 in
Whatever,
total.
man. You
Wow.
get a voiced Xeno Vegito. Okay, I don't want to hear it.
That is
Yeah.
true. We do have that.
Well, probably not for the
Yeah, well,
After
you know,
this, it won't matter.
while it lasts. But no, I honestly, with the whole pity thing, I am so glad that like they made that decision
Mm.
to have the like units that you have rainbow become the pity coins, because it
Yeah.
makes it like so much better to be able to you know, like get closer to this. I mean, like in the last multi I did, the one that I just posted on Twitter where I got 3Ku, I got like, I think it was like 4 units or something like that I could put in for the pity coins, right? And that's like 12 coins right there. That's a whole multi that I got out of another multi,
Yep.
right? So I don't know, man. Like, and obviously that's more beneficial for longtime players, I suppose, because obviously with us, right, it's like we have a lot of the like, you know, unfeatured pool in the game already rainbowed.
Yeah.
So, you know, I suppose for somebody who's like brand new, it's maybe not as big of a deal. But I think that is really cool because I feel like they definitely could have just made that like yellow coins. Like they definitely could have just been like, yep, you get standard yellow coins from this and, you know, no pity. And, you know, that would have, I guess, been fine. Still kind of sucked, honestly. But, you know, I'm really glad that they did that because it makes it a lot easier to summon. And honestly, I think that is something that, you know, maybe this is the certified gambling addiction talking, but you know, I think that like genuinely having those units become the pity coins specifically makes it a lot more fun to summon on. It makes it a lot more fun to summon on the banners because then it's kind of like, you know, oh, you know, I know the exact amount of multis it's gonna take me to get to pity, and you know, it's basically like, well, I'm just gonna trudge along. It makes it a little bit more like, ooh, will I get some more, you know, will I get some extra pity coins in this multi, you know? Like, I don't know.
There's no other banner where you'll be happy to get like a 5 unfeatured SSR multi where they're all trash, like 2019 SSRs or something. But you're just like, yes, that's 15 more pity coins right there.
Dude, it's so funny that you say that, like genuinely. You know the Int Tora that came out with Tech Bardock?
Yep.
I don't have him rainbowed yet. I just pulled I think I now have 4 copies of him because I haven't even awakened him yet. And the funny thing about it is that like at this point, bro, I want to pull characters that I have rainbowed more than characters that I don't.
Yeah.
Like I pulled that Int Tora realizing I didn't have him rainbowed and I was like, dang it, why couldn't you have been a stinky unit? Or a stinkier unit, I guess. Oh man, so it's kind of funny that you really just like want the dupes, you know?
Yep. It's like if you're not pulling the main unit, you just want as many SSRs you don't need as possible, right? So you can get the extra coins, which is a W. Obviously, if they ever actually do put the pity system on any other banner formats, that will be the same thing. So that would be fantastic.
I need that
I
worldwide
hope so,
celebration.
Man.
Give me
I really
tickets on JP. Give me pity on the banners.
Dude, could you imagine if like, because
I would
obviously
love
we're
that.
going to sync for like the worldwide essentially and then going on after that. Could you imagine if that's like one of the big announcements for the 10th anniversary as like the first shared anniversary? It's like, here's the new anniversary Dokkan Fest LR banners and they have the pity system on them. Like, man,
that would be insane.
So
oh boy.
awesome.
Anyway, before we get too sidetracked, now that we've talked about our summons, we'll talk about Gohan and what we think about him as an actual unit in the game. So Toon, if you want to start off with your experience with him, because of course you and I only have the global events available, which is, you know, I actually haven't even tried him out against like Zamasu or Omega. I know the main thing for global players at the moment is, of course, the new Buu Saga Red Zone stages. But let me know your thoughts on Gohan actually in game.
So he's by no stretch a necessary piece right now. You don't need him. That I think that matters for this character. He's not a game-changing character that you have to have. But I'm not gonna lie. He is the perfect complement to Gohan, the Tech Ultimate Gohan, and that 1-2 punch is so fun to run because with this guy in the slot 2, able to just launch attack after attack. I've given him a max crit build.
Yep.
It's been a lot of fun having the shield kind of block all the attacks in slot 1, and then this dude just unloads in slot 2. And then it's also nice because since there's so much focus on defense, with that amplified further with Cold Judgment and like all the defensive oriented links, my whole Majin Buu Saga team is just like pretty stacked now with damage reduction, with guard here and there, all of these extra little pockets of support. This has actually made the team a lot more consistent, but it's still by no means necessary. But yeah, for me, with a 90% max links Gohan with full crit, I'm having a lot of fun. He hits really, really hard. And there's obviously risk when I'm using him, but it's worth the risk because it's a lot of fun. Gohan, double Gohan on this rotation, Super Saiyan 3 and Fat Buu in the other rotation. You're floating insane characters like Exchange Buu. I mean, like, the category is just so stacked that I can't possibly not have fun with more pieces adding to this category.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely fun to use. And like you said, using
How
him...
did you...
What?
Did you build him full crit, or did you do something else?
Yeah, I think so. Mine is like, I think he only has about 7 dodge, and that's just because he has 3 dodge as a standard, and then I think one of the skill orbs I gave him that gives him crit also gives him like 4 dodge. But yeah, I think he has something like 22 crit and then like 12 or 13 additional, something like that. But yeah, full crit, because like there are those unfortunate turns where he can just do a bunch of additional normals, but especially if he got a bunch of 12 key supers on the previous turn, because he carries over attack from his 12 key for like 3 turns, so he'll have it on the next rotation. Like his normals, if they're critting, can actually still do pretty decent damage. So yeah, I think crit is definitely a good way to go for him. Yeah, I've been having fun using him in these events for sure.
It just sucks that he kind of also seems like a setup man. He kind of seems like a slot 1 based on some of his abilities. But if you just embrace that he's a slot 2 and you don't have him, you know, in front of enemy lines, he really delivers like with those hard hits.
Yeah, and it's fun because obviously, like, he has it's a bit of a shame. I know Minato will talk to us about the JP performance because, of course, you need to run. I say you need to run a Gotenks with him, at least if you want the unit super. And of course, we have the Int Gotenks that got his EZA. We have the physical banner unit Gotenks. They're both really good. I mean, they're both really good. Like, Int Gotenks is a good, like, I mean, I usually include him on the super class version of my Buu Saga team. But I think I have noticed that in some of the runs, the Gotenkses will be the only units that actually potentially get you killed in the GOHAN Red Zone stage, for example.
Lately, my max dodge Gotenks has been betraying me a little too much. And since we're just like oversaturated with like decent Majin Buu Saga characters, it's not the biggest detriment to not include them.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously bringing the Gotenks does bring out more out of that Gohan.
Yeah, if you're running like double AGL Goku for like the Majin for the like super class Buu Saga team, like the team is probably better off if you're running someone like, you know, STR Goku and Vegeta that fuse into Vegito, as opposed to running, you know, physical Gotenks just so that Gohan can get his unit super. But of course, Minato on the JP side has all the various different events from the anniversary. And of course, the Tech Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks Super EZA. So what are your thoughts on Gohan on the JP side when it comes to some of the most difficult content, which of course is largely from the anniversary stuff?
No, I was just using it right now. Just showing how he got 2 medium chances to fail, which is very funny. By the way, if you guys weren't aware, before we continue on from there, the 2 medium chances actually go off before the 70% chance. So the 70% chance would be the 3rd additional that you see, because the 70% chance additional. I don't know. Apparently, it's because the medium chances state that at start of turn.
Yeah,
and that's why
the passive
the medium
order
chances do that, right?
I did.
Yeah, because the great chance additional is when keys 18 or more, which is.
I did wonder, because you will very often see on that turn where he's getting those 2 extra attacks in his passive, you'll very often see him like miss the first 2 and then he'll super in the 3rd one. And then when I obviously used him for the first couple of times, I was like, damn, he missed his 70% chance one but got one of the 30% ones. But yeah, it's actually the 2 30% ones that go off first, which is why you'll very often see him do 2 additional normal attacks and then an additional super, and then potentially the hidden potential as well. But yeah,
exactly that, right?
JP content, how good is he? Let us know.
So in terms of Gogeta, I actually think he's quite fine. Gogeta, again, when you're using him next to Tech Ultimate Gohan. I know that I would say in global, the Gotenks unit super tech doesn't really matter, and it doesn't really matter too much on JP either. But considering the fact that these events are super longer, the stacks that build into his active skill increases his damage by a lot. So if you're getting 30% extra attack stacks on multiple turns with the unit super attack over like 7-8 turns, that will add a lot of damage to his active skill. I've had his active skill damage do like 3.5 health bars to Gogeta at the end of the fight, and that's like before we just even attack at all. So that'll be quite a lot of extra damage that you could potentially see from him. In terms of like his own performance, I'm not really like going too crazy over in a post 9th anniversary world. I think he looks nice, right? I definitely think that he could put in work if the RNG goes in his way. But sometimes the RNG is just, I don't know. It's like I feel like so many of these characters that came out during the 9th anniversary, even post 9th anniversary, are very consistent characters and they like do certain things. And this guy being a character where he has the crits, or he doesn't have any crit built in, is very odd because I feel like every damage character does like has crit built in nowadays, right? Like, am I just not mistaken? Like, what character that does damage doesn't have crit built in? And this character, as a character that you're running to be an offensive based character, not having that makes it okay. You have to build his hidden potential as crit, but then if you just get the 55% copy, then what is he really doing for you besides having decent defense? Damage isn't really going to be crazy if you're not critting with this guy. I mean, that's just how things are now, right? With how tough these bosses are defensively. It's something that I found, along with the inconsistency of his additionals, along with his key inconsistencies sometimes. I have ran into a couple of issues with this guy. But if he does his really good turns, he could even shred through some of these bosses, given that you have him with dupes and are getting the full crit build on there, and he's still critting with like a 50% chance, right? Definitely can see some good stuff from him. And because he has the guard, he lives a majority of super attacks in the game. I mean, on the turn where he uses active skill and he gets the active skill 58% defense buff, he's getting full 24 key as well. He will look pretty good on that turn specifically. But outside of that, I'm just looking at him compared to like the best characters in the game, and all those other characters are just doing what they could do much more consistently with bigger numbers, with built-in crits. Like, let's take a look at Physical Blue Falcon, Goku, and Evolution Vegeta. I think these guys are a little similar, where they want certain key. They want the Rainbow Key Spheres, though, and they make Rainbow Orbs, which is a lot better than Gohan, right? I think that they're additionals with all the high chances, and they have guaranteed crit, right? They are performing their role as a damage dealer, I think, a lot more better than what this Gohan is doing. And at the end of the day, he wants to be ran on specifically Majin Buu Saga. I feel like I'm just dragging on this guy, but I also want to bring out his good points, right? I just like I've used this guy a lot because again I'm a fan of Ultimate Gohan, but I feel like using him next to Tech Gohan, I just find that Tech Gohan almost feels like he's better to me. Like, am I
He is.
crazy? Like, he feels
is
like
better.
he's better. Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm saying. He's not necessary. Like, he's not a
He's not
must-have at all
necessary.
because he's already replaced before even showing up.
I wouldn't say necessarily it's a thing of being replaced because he does bring out a lot of that Tech Ultimate Gohan's potential, but it's just a thing where you don't need him, and the team you're really gonna run him on is Majin Buu Saga. Because if you're not running him on Majin Buu Saga,
You've got major key issues if you don't.
yeah, because that's sad because he relies a little bit on the AGL Keysfer changing, and even on the Majin Buu Saga team, that's going to not be consistent because you can't control. Like, if we could set up orbs for him, like let's say he changed STR to EGL, then I'm like, okay, maybe I could set up some STR orbs for him. But no, it's random, so you can't decide what happens. You could change the 3 tech key spheres on the top right, and you can't do anything, right? You know, so that those are some just like annoyances I found with this guy, but he's still a nice little fun character. I think he like characters that do additionals are fun to use. He's really great next to Ultimate Gohan. He has a good partnership. Majin Buu Saga team is strong enough that it'll also like go his way. With the offensive kind of build, but yeah, I do have a lot of issues with this guy that I feel like they could just have. They like went out of the way to make him a little weird, gimmicky almost, and they didn't really need to do that. Is my thing. There's like very easy ways where, especially if we take a look at like how Boma was last year as an example. Not that I would expect this guy to be as good as the anniversary LRs, but like I feel like he's not even really close to being on par with some of these even anniversary EZAs, right? Like, I would use Broly Trio over this guy. I would use STRUI Goku over this guy, probably. I would probably use Blue Falcon Evolution Blue Vegeta as well. Like, you know what I mean? Those are just my thoughts on him. I think he's fun though.
I don't mind gimmicky characters who have like very obvious and glaring weaknesses. I just think that in this day and age with Dokkan how it is, and in order for the majority of the players to survive the onslaught of units back to back to back to back, you just have to pick and choose. And like you were saying, you want to go for the sure things, not for the ones that have medium chance to launch an additional, right? So
Yeah, that too.
this is just one of those characters that just falls between the cracks. Like you just by
It's like-
process of elimination, this is like the blueprint of a character you skip.
That's also a thing where he also relies on the enemy's HP. He has a lot of things that needs to go this way. It's not like one or two things. You need a full Majin Buu Saga rotation. You need, the 2 for the intro is not a big deal, but the full Buu Saga rotation you need for his orb changing. You need the enemy to be above an HP threshold. You need the additionals to go your way. You need dupes and a full crit build for him to actually do damage. You want to make sure that there's some go tanks ideally so that there's the extra attack stats for his active skill to do damage, and you need a crit on the active skill for it to do damage in a lot of situations. I just feel like there's like so much that he wants. I mean, ideally he gets 24 key, which is ideally he gets good orb changing. It just I don't know. I feel like they could have taken a little bit away off of what he wants to be good, just shaved a little bit off of those conditions, because I feel like he's a very conditional character. In my opinion anyways, right? And I'm sure you guys may have likely experienced that too with his key issues. And I think on the global content, it's not that big of a deal. But if I'm against Gogeta or Beast Gohan, right? I've seen clips of this guy doing still 3 additional supers against Beast Gohan, but he doesn't meet the damage cap to actually do damage. So he ends up doing 0 damage to the Beast Gohan fight, right? Because he doesn't have built-in crits. So if you don't crit with him with your hidden potential or don't have dupes, then he's literally not doing damage in that fight, right? I would say he's pretty good for the new Cell Max fight because he's at least he could do everything he can do turn 1. So in that fight, he could eat the super attack very well. And he has the 2-turn early on support, which I would find useful, especially for Tech Gohan, right? That's really everything I could
New
say.
Cell Max event, Beast Gohan. Ningen, you know what this clown's talking about?
I know, right? He's a fortune teller. He's from the future.
I am from the future.
Minato on the
Yeah,
time
that's right.
travelers category confirmed. But
Future Saga Minato? That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, he is Yajirobe, right?
I am.
Yeah,
That's true,
he's
that's true.
Future Saga
I'm
Yajirobe.
Future Saga Yajirobe. That's exactly what I am.
but
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
literally using him right here on the site too.
but yeah, he's definitely I posted about it the other day. Like the more I've used him, he's fun. He's fun to use, but he's definitely not anything crazy. He's not a must summon. His on his best turns he can be super fun, and then on his worst turns he's just really unimpressive. So it's one of those things that if you're on global, especially if you're tempted, but you want to be focusing on the anniversary, I would say he's a fairly easy skip. It is a shame because, as you said about Bulma, she came out in this same spot, the Part 2 Golden Week LR for last year, but when she came out, there were arguments that she was the best unit in the game, which, of course, this Gohan is not on that kind of level. So, a little bit unfortunate, but he's fun to use. Like I say, if you're going crazy on either of the Carnival banners for the anniversary, you might end up pulling a copy of him.
I just don't know why he doesn't have crits, but just he's the damage dealer. Where's his crits at?
Yeah.
Hello? I'm getting a really good turn here, by the way. If chat sees
I know, I
this.
can see. Yeah, actually
he's
getting the
active
additional
goalkeeper
supers
here.
and actually getting some
Yeah.
crits. And this is what I'm talking about. On these turns,
On
he
these
can look
turns,
really
he
fun.
looks pretty
He does loads of
nuts,
damage, but yeah.
In his passive, you can see a little bit of the Gobros in there, where he gets an extra attack plus 58% when key is 24.
Yeah.
Other parts of his passive, do they resemble other Gotenks characters or Piccolo characters at all? Did you guys notice anything like that?
I
I don't know.
Not really, because Gotenks' whole gimmick is that he has the different key meters for the most part. Piccolo doesn't really necessarily have a gimmick per se. I think and I haven't really noticed any gimmicks compared to those characters specifically that have that point stand out to me. I'm like, oh yeah, those are his gimmicks, nothing like that really stood out to me.
Damn.
But yeah, I think I do though taking him into the Gogeta fight, stacking up his attack, and then at the end just nuking Gogeta, and you could one turn that Gogeta fight at the end with him if the RNG does go your way with the active skill. But that does probably require use. Is the only thing I would say there. But
Yeah.
at least with Tech Gohan, like Tech Gohan could sit slot 1, take like 0 damage basically from Gogeta Super, because he does provide the support and the active skill, which I would find nice. I like the little 20% support, but like instead of the support, like what if he had guaranteed crits
Yeah.
at 24k? You
Yep.
know, I think that probably would have worked out a lot better. But yeah, I just like, I hate characters where you could look at their kit and then you poke a bunch of little holes in that kit and they all
Yeah.
add up, and then whilst you could look really good, I think that's like a very circumstantial situation too. So
Yeah. Well, there you have it. That's overall thoughts on Gohan. I kind of feel a little bit bad for Theo. He's over here like basically like 2 multis away from finally getting him on the pity, and we're all sat here like, he's all right, I guess.
I mean, it's
it's
mostly me that win
at this point, bro.
No. You know what? If you like
I know,
him,
I'm
you'll
kidding,
have
I'm
fun.
kidding.
Right?
Well, I mean, to be fair, like, just besides the fact that I like Gohan, you know, part of the main reason why I was summoning was just for, you know, another character to run with Beast. So, you know,
And
I
mean,
why not, right?
You could use him with Beast as long as, you know,
Gotta do some
gotta be
shenanigans, but yeah.
There's some orb changers that you could probably run on like the superheroes team at times and help this guy with his key. Beast supports key. So like that's definitely is a rotation you could run. And like this guy will still be good in the content. He's just not gonna be as great as other options. Especially as like a new character not meeting like anniversary EZAs, even though he's Yellow Coin LR, essentially, right? That doesn't mean that he has to be riddled with these issues that I feel like they almost intentionally put into him because he has pity, maybe. Like I feel like the Ginyu Force also had like some weird oddities with them. I don't know if it was because they're Yellow Coin and have pity or not, but I can't really say for sure. At least he's fine.
I will say the only other thing that I wanted to mention about Gohan, I know we like kind of touched on it earlier, but like, bro, what was the point of putting Piccolo in the art, bro? Like,
just for fun.
I get, well, because here's the thing, right? So what's so strange about that decision to me, and funny enough, I talked about this in the animation analysis video about him too, is that like usually, right, when they do that, right, when they put a character in the art, right, first of all, if it's like a reference to a pre-existing piece of art and the character's in that art, but maybe it doesn't really make sense in the context of like the unit, then like sure, right? But the thing that was so strange about it is that Piccolo isn't even in the art for that original piece of art, right? It's just Gotenks, Goku, and Gohan, right? So that's why like that part is so weird to me, because I'm like, well, okay, so they're not referencing the art. So I'm thinking like, because see, my thing was that when I first saw the like card art, right, when they posted on Twitter, I was like, oh, okay, so he's gonna have a unit super attack with Piccolo and with Gotenks, right? Like that was kind of my impression. But, and that's because that's usually the case, right? Like when they include a character in the card art, that usually means that they have a more like meaningful place almost like in the animation and just like as a part of the unit. But it was so confusing because the only thing that Piccolo is there for is literally the intro, right? Like that's it. He's there to go, oh my gosh, it's Gohan, and then the, you know, it ends. You know, or well, Piccolo's involvement ends, I guess I should say. So that's what's so like confusing to me, because I feel like the card arts are usually such a good representation of kind of like what you can expect from a unit, right? Like in that regard of basically like, you know, who will be a part of the card and, you know, like all that type of stuff. So it was just really weird that they like made that decision this time, because it kind of felt a little bit out of place to me. Like usually whenever they, you know, like do that, you have the expectation like, oh, this unit is going to participate in the card in a meaningful way, right? That's like always how I interpret it when a character is in the actual like card art itself. But clearly that was not the case this time. So I don't know. I feel like this was like the first example of that. Like I know that there's been times where sometimes characters just appear in there, but I feel like it hasn't been as much to the point of like with this unit where it was just genuinely confusing.
Yeah, it's not common.
So-
Someone mentioned in the chat, like the Kid Trunks is in the Int Majin Vegeta art, and he's only in like,
Yeah.
the intro animation. But...
Right, exactly. That's another good example. But it's like, it's just so weird because like, I don't know. It just felt really out of place to me, I guess, was the point. So I
to
don't
me,
think
I don't
it's
think
like
it's
the worst, but
I mean, it's only funny when we see the 18 key and then they flash the art where Piccolo's there for a second.
right. It's like, bro, huh?
Yeah.
That's what's funny to me. Not really the card art itself, because Piccolo's in the intro.
Yeah.
Like when they flash it and Piccolo's
Yeah.
there, they could have probably put Piccolo doing his own beam. I don't think that
Right,
would have
like,
been anything
Yeah.
major.
Literally in like when I was doing the video about it, I was like, dude, literally right here at this very spot, they could have easily just had Piccolo like come in and like literally just jump into the frame basically and then do a key blast, right? Like it was that simple. It's like they didn't even have to have him do any like complicated or attack or anything. They literally just had to have my boy participate. That's all I wanted. I just wanted my boy to be part of the group.
I do think that it's pretty cool that they still referenced art in general. Someone
yeah, I
should
do like that.
Someone should take the PNGs and then put Goku in the
Wow.
background.
It's
Just
funny
replace
that you
Piccolo.
say that because that's already been done.
I was going to say,
did it?
I'm not surprised that someone's done that already.
The boy Kevin X, which is funny enough, the guy who usually does the anime Dokkan comparisons, he
me
made a
see.
version of it. Yeah, take a look on his Twitter. I know I retweeted it a fat minute ago.
Can't find the
Right.
Kevin.
Well, anyway, we have talked about Gohan
Yes.
for a while now.
Very cool.
We've got a couple of other
Yeah.
things to move on to here. All in all, interesting choice for a Part 2 LR. Mixed bag when it comes to his animations. Definitely not a must summon unit, but he can be fun to use. So the other big thing that we had come out with the Part 2 is a whole bunch of EZAs. The Buu Saga EZAs, unfortunately all sub EZAs, so a lot of medal farming needed to be done in the lead up to these guys coming out. At least you could pre-farm them, I suppose. But yeah, Part 2 with this guy coming out, we saw the release of a whole bunch of these guys here. So we have the Tech Trunks and the Int Goten. Then there's the STR Fat Buu, the Int Hercule, and the Physical Buu Tanks. So all 5 of these guys got EZAs. They are relatively decent, I would say. In terms of talking about these guys specifically, I don't know if Theo, if there's one in particular that you've had a chance to use that you want to talk about, and then we can kind of go around and just pick out from who's left who we want to talk about. Because yeah, they're all relatively decent, I would say. But yeah, what's your how do you want to start us off here?
So funny enough, like even though these EZAs are all pretty good, realistically, I know this is, I guess, kind of a funny like choice, honestly. But realistically, the one that I cared the most about, honestly, was in
You say that, but he's
'cause,
the most relevant one, I feel like.
that's true. I don't know. I think it's just funny that it's like funny to be excited about like a like a Hercule unit or just like in general. But genuinely, like this Int Hercule has such a special place in my heart. Like he is just, I don't know. There's just something about him. Like it's just like the dodge shenanigans that really like. Oh, I always really like this guy. Like I genuinely ran this guy on so many teams back in the day. Because I was talking to my friend about it the other day, and he's like, like you're really that excited? I was like, yeah, this guy's the GOAT, bro. Like, legitimately, back in the day, I pulled so many copies of him. I rainbowed the SSR, and just for funsies, I used to run the SSR and the UR of this guy. So, I was really excited that he finally got an EZA. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten a chance to use these guys yet. Definitely though, Hercule will be the first one that I will be testing out myself. But like in terms of the kit, I mean, I think that basically they basically just like improved upon what he was already known for, which was basically like the dodging and the stunning essentially. I think that it's nice also too that they did give him a little bit of damage reduction, like a little bit of a boost to it, I believe. Yeah. Or well, I guess
It's
he
the
still
same
has
thing,
it,
I
but
think.
No, his damage reduction is the same, but
Is it the
his
same?
he gets
Okay.
extra stats from supering. That's what makes the damage
Yeah.
reduction more
Yeah.
significant.
Right, that's what I meant. Yeah. So I think that aspect is cool, right? Because then it's like a not an unintentional, but it's like then a buff to if you do miss the dodge, then obviously you can still be able to defend a little bit better. Because even though his defenses were good before, like, sometimes when I would get hit with him, I feel like, at least in the content that I ran him in back then, he would still take hits decently well. I've tried to run him again recently, and sometimes those attacks are a little hefty.
Yeah.
They pack quite a punch. So it's nice that obviously if you don't end up getting the dodge, then of course you have a little bit of like fallback, right? You have a little bit of a backup plan on that. So I don't know. That was definitely the unit that I was the most excited for personally. It was cool in terms of I don't really have much to say about Buu. Y'all can talk about him for sure, but I was excited to see that he got an EZA purely from the fact that, like, dog, I feel like that unit has been one that has needed it for a really long time.
Yeah, both
he's
the
just
Buu
kind of been
ones.
sitting there.
Yeah.
And not to mention we haven't had good fat Boos until like literally this celebration.
Yeah.
In terms of
basically
Fat Buu, that guy is one of the oldest characters without an EZA. I mean,
Hmm.
he was sitting there since 2019 is when his TWR came out.
crazy.
And even like in Hercule, I believe, also came out in 2019 at the same time. They awakened on the same day. Both
Okay.
in Hercule and Fat Buu. So they've been sitting there waiting for their EZs for quite a while. As 2019
Okay.
characters.
But yeah, Hercule's kind of funny because there's someone in my community that absolutely loves this card and was talking about even pre-EZA that he was still good in like all content.
Is it the
Warzone guy? Yep. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, exactly. He's
He
in
is.
all my comments about it too.
Yeah, because the thing
He
is,
is good though, pre-ZA.
I mean, the thing is, he's one of those
Yeah,
units
he's
that
pretty
is
good.
similar to like the EZA we saw for the AGL Super Vegeta, where his damage reduction increases with the lower HP you're on. So if he takes a hit, even pre-EZA, he could tank relatively well if you were on low health when he takes the hit. The problem with him is the same as that Super Vegeta, where if you start the turn on full HP, and then he doesn't dodge a super, he takes a lot of damage because his damage reduction is low when you have a lot of HP. But I mean, he certainly can be very good. He's interesting. He was always a fun unit to run in like the Super Battle Road stages back in the day when they were a lot more difficult to get some of these no item runs, because with the dodging and the stunning and stuff like that, he definitely came in clutch on a lot of those runs. But yeah, he's certainly fun, and his EZA is good.
I guess that's the only like thing that you could like say, I guess, or well, not the only thing, but I guess that's like a main thing that you could say that like has kept him relevant, because I guess at least like, if he's taking a hit, it's not going to end well. But I guess, in terms of like our favorite term these days, the dodge or die, I guess he still has that going for him. I mean, if the boy doesn't get hit, then you could still run him in modern events, assuming he just doesn't take a hit. So I don't know. I guess,
now that he's getting
he has
defense
that
on
benefit.
super and that, he is a lot better at taking the hits if you don't dodge. So
Yeah.
definitely a solid EZA for sure. Toon, out of these guys, unless it's Hercule, obviously, out of these guys, which one is your favorite? You want to tell us about how you got on with them?
It's not Hercule, but I will say, if you guys have not tried this, you should try running Hercule on a full Majin power team with as many of the Boos that have the surviving KO attack abilities. That actually is surprisingly effective with a staller, with a survive KO, with regen. You are not invincible, but you can kind of glide through some pretty dangerous situations. But my favorite EZA is Fat Buu. I was expecting the Goten and the Trunks to be my favorite, and I actually really like them. But STR Fat Buu blew me away. Like, he is by far and away my favorite. I've given him a max critical / recovery boost build. So when he orb changes and he can, because if you can plan ahead and make sure that you've got a good amount of STR and int orbs, which is fairly easy to do, the turn that he shows up and he picks up all those orbs, that just adds so much more to your ability to just stay alive, because you already know Majin power gives you a good amount of regen. You also got all these different characters who can guard and have damage reduction and stuff like that, survive KO attacks. This dude now giving you a heal and a crazy nuking passive, launching multiple supers. Now these new events, you can use stunning effects on some of the later stages. That also matters. This guy has become my favorite. Also, you run this dude with STR hit on Kale's team. That is a broken combination. 50% support plus orb changing and that nuking passive. Ooh.
You could run Cabot too as well. Because this guy can get up to like 48% reduction or something. I forgot how many it is.
23 orbs on the field minus 3 because the count starts after 3. So that's 60% extra damage reduction. That's the max he can get. On top of his 30% already.
So you can get up to 90%. Okay, with the full key sphere change, which I mean, you could actually theoretically get that with the hit and the Kaba as well.
Well, plus you could run him on like 21's lead with Majin power and have Bulma on the team, and obviously her active skill turn, like some fun shenanigans.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, STR Buu has unlocked so many fun team combos for me now. So he is by far and away my favorite.
I'm not trying to be myself. I mean, I wasn't really going crazy over Z-Tails, but he seems like a decent character.
Yeah, his biggest problem, unfortunately, like any nuking style unit, is of course it's good that he has the specific orb changing because you can set it up a little bit in some situations, but of course there are always going to be those times where you kill the boss or like you finish a phase the turn before he comes on the rotation, so you
I mean
set
that's
anything
always
up. And then if unfortunately if that happens against the tough bosses, and then he can't pick up many orbs, then unfortunately he is quite bad. But I mean, that is a thing. That's just part and parcel. It's nothing against him specifically. That's just kind of part and parcel of being a nuking style unit. But yeah.
So I do need to say, to follow up on that, that is one of the scenarios that I kind of simulated and I tried to focus on more in my first run with the unit. And so I would I wouldn't intentionally restrict myself, but I wouldn't really plan ahead. I would more so kind of pick up whatever orbs I could on the turn that it happened, not really factoring in any sort of previous turn orbage. So even with like 2 or 3 orbs, dude can still cook. Like he's still surprisingly effective given what he is, given that he's a sub EZA, not a Dokkan Fest, all that stuff. He can actually still produce pretty effectively even with like 3 orbs picked up. It's kind of similar to the support characters. You give them 3 orbs of the matching type, the amount of stats you gain from that matching orb still provides a significant boost to the character.
Well, I mean, on global, probably.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I am a global player. Yes,
that's
I
the
am
thing.
A global player.
Is the
Everybody knows this.
The biggest problem with him is that on those bad turns, if you do get them, he will be a liability against the toughest bosses, and that's kind of those are the things you take into consideration when it comes to like your team building.
If you're using them for fun,
So,
it could be a very fun
yeah, but like, so say for example, like for global, when the anniversary content comes, if you want to take the Buu team, for example, like Int Buu, and you want to run like a full Buu team against like, you know, Beast Gohan or Blue Gogeta, those are the kind of things you have to take into account. Is if you use this STR Fat Buu on his good turns, he'll be really good. But if you get a bad orb turn with him, then he potentially is getting you killed on that turn. So
because
it's
like
something to take. No, like again, it's like I said, it's nothing specifically against him. It's just unfortunately that is kind of always what happens with a nuking style unit, right? If you get unlucky with the orbs, then obviously they're not going to perform as well. And that's kind of the risk you take.
But you get like even with 3 orbs, you get 150%, right? Because he gets 50% per STR keys, which is a lot, right? And that gives you a lot of stats. Even though he doesn't have any multiplicative stats in his passive, right? It'll still give you a decent little boost that he can get per orb, like 50%. Like that's literally with 4 characters. But I've just known from my experience, like, you know, on GP and the difficult content, like getting 3 orbs for those support characters, especially when their guard is gone, is very dangerous. But you know, this guy also could potentially get 30% reduction bare minimum. So maybe it's a little different for him.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that is kind of scary for him as well that I touched on in the video that I made is that if you do get those turns where you get a bad orb change, because let's say, for example, it's the start of a new phase, so you weren't able to prepare any orbs for him or something like that. The biggest problem, I think, with him is that his passive, it is specifically STR orbs. So if you get like a really bad orb change, but there's a cluster of like 12 AGL orbs, well, he doesn't get anything from those. Whereas obviously nuking style
he does
units
still
that
get
get
the additional
all
super,
orbs.
right? But no stats.
Yeah, he doesn't get the stats from them, which of course is the main thing when it comes to him then having to tank hits and stuff. But which is a shame because obviously if you're a nuking style unit that is like any orb, then those kind of situations you'll still be fine. Whereas unfortunately he
Yeah.
won't. But again, that's kind of like if and when that situation occurs. It's just unfortunate that that's not the best situation for him. But
They should have
I do
done
think
like
he's good.
20% or 30% per normal.
They could have
orb,
done,
right?
yeah. We have nuking style characters that have that, don't we? Where it's like X amount of percent per orb, and then an extra X amount if it's like the same type orb or something like that. Like that would have been really beneficial for him, I think. But yeah, I mean, he's still
I feel like that would
definitely
have been too
runnable,
good
for sure,
considering
but-
he's an older character.
I mean, it doesn't really matter because like they made Hercule really good, and I feel like he's gonna age extremely
Well, I mean, Hercule was already good. The glow up wasn't as significant for Hercule, you know? Like
I
this
mean,
guy
yeah.
coming from what I'm not trying to say that they should never do that. Like they should make units better, of course. But I'm also thinking like what he was versus what he is. I feel like that might
yeah, he
be too big of a
definitely is.
jump.
He's fine for what he is, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think like him getting a lower like amount, especially because you also would need to rely on a cluster of orbs regardless, right? But it just would be nice for certain other situations, so he wouldn't be as good, nearly as good probably, if he only got 30% per other orbs, but it wouldn't make it so that he's not still a 0. But yeah, I mean, we get to also take a look at what they did for Bardic and Ningen and Paragus and Broly. Like Paragus and Broly during the anniversary. I don't know if you're aware of what they do.
I have tunnel vision. I'd purposely stay away.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, if would you be okay with me explaining? it?
Oh,
I
yeah,
just
you
wanted
can
to-
talk about no worries.
Yeah. So like they get like a lot of additionals now. They get 26% reduction per super attack they do, and they can launch like 4 supers in the turn. They can get nearly like 100% reduction, right? So it's like they can make these banner unit EZs that are very old really good still. Now I guess this guy again was one of the older characters, but yeah, I see what you mean. Where they still like even that card like it's chances to do the super attacks, right? So it's like there are going to be some caveats for like a banner unit that came out in 2019. They're not going to make them like really busted, but
Yeah.
I don't think that would have made them busted. But that's just getting off topic. I
Yeah,
think,
it'd just be a nice little backup because, like I say, if there are those turns where you can't get any STR orbs with him, then you can't get any buffs essentially from the other orbs, which is a bit of a shame. But he is still good, like I say, not to take away from his like performance when you're getting those good turns. He's definitely runnable. He's an option for the Buu team for sure. He shares the same name with the Int Buu, but obviously once you've got Int Buu like built up, and especially post revive, you're potentially running him in slot 1 on both rotations. So having this guy floating in slot 3 means that you don't have to worry about the same name thing. And of course, if you are setting up orbs ahead of time and getting a good orb change, because the Majin Buu Saga team links so well together, you can kind of work around the cluster of orbs as long as you're actually able to, of course. You can literally pick up like 1 or 2 orbs with the unit in slot 1 and 2 and still leave that cluster of orbs for him for the end of the turn. So he certainly can be very good. I remember back in the day before it was all like the LR meta, and of course, way before Piccolo Jr., like he was a really good unit for the World Tournament as well. So that's another option for people, I guess, if you don't have all of the current meta.
Remember when you did that
units.
crazy? You did the crazy STR nuke strat with the item. I remember that.
Yeah, shout out to Shadow, one of my original old school mods. Yeah, the STR nuking team for the World Tournament.
That was a very confusing time for me.
That was
because
great.
of you.
It was like STR AoE Piccolo as the leader because he had a nuking style
Yep.
leader skill. And
You
then
had me questioning
and then there's, like,
everything.
Fat
I was thinking, wait,
Buu, LR Broly.
is this man cooking over
like-
here? Should I do this?
It was kind of fun and like it could work, but it was just one of those very item heavy strats, which obviously the meta's very much moved away from that now, especially with the Piccolo Jr. active skill. But yeah, so that's Int Hercule and STR Fat Buu. Minato, let us know what you think about either the Goten and Trunks or the Buu tanks, and then I'll talk about the other one.
I've used the Goten and Trunks. I have not used the Bhutan Trunks.
Okay.
I don't think I'm from. But yeah, so with Goten and Trunks, again, I think they look like they're pretty they're pretty good overall when they have each other on rotation, right? And
Mhm.
they can provide support to that Kamehameha team. Like they can provide 120% attack support. So like if you're in weaker events where you could run one of them in slot 1, like I took into the Golden Frieza fight, right? Where it's like, okay, the hardest phase of that Golden Frieza fight is AGL, but I'm able to like kind of maneuver around and run Trunks in the first slot because he's an AGL boss, right?
Mhm.
And in that situation, even though Trunks, like, because their issue is like, even though they're in slot 1, they only have 50% reduction before they attack. It's like Trunks is still taking like 30k normals. He's still taking like, I don't know, 400 ish K on a super or so, which is not bad, but like not really great. And like you have a character the third slot that's in Kamehameha getting 120% attack support.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Kind of crazy, right? Or if you're running like what I tried at the end was I put Goten in slot 2 and Trunks in slot 3. And I think I had the EGL Super Saiyan World Tournament Gohan from the Broly movie that got his EZA a few months back. But Trunks at the end did a 20 mil attack stat, right? So like you can get some funny looking numbers from these guys.
Yeah, because they get extra attack in slot 3, don't they? So
yeah, the 120% attack. So you have like one of them in slot 2 giving the 70% support, and then they get the 120% attack in slot 3 compared to just the 50% support in slot 1. But obviously the issue is that, you know, neither of them in the most difficult content can rerun reliably in slot 1.
Not
because-
yet.
Not yet, right?
They are going to be so good when that stupid physical Goten Trunks EZAs. Mark my words.
I mean,
telling
the
you.
issue is that character is also not slot 1.
Yeah.
Don't
That
worry.
character
Don't
wants
worry.
to be slot 2.
Don't worry.
So-
I've seen the future.
My idea is that we
I've
get.
got a vision.
No, my idea is that we get.
I'm really
like,
feeling it.
Because if you guys noticed, we don't have actual like active scope fusing Gotenks. Like we don't have that.
Yeah.
That's not a thing at all. So I'm thinking we could get active skill fusing like base Goten and Trunks that fuse into Gotenks. Then we could get the EZA for physical Goten and Trunks, EZA the tech Krillin, and then I don't know,
Yeah.
EZA like some other Goten and Trunks, ideally like a standalone Goten or standalone Trunks. Maybe that tech Goten that came out with SJ
Oh,
Vidal,
yeah.
the sub EZA him somehow, and then he's a support as well. Then like you have like a huge Goten and Trunks kind of team. So like, even when you eventually fuse into Gotenks, the rest of the team is still Goten, Trunks, and Krillin. So with that, you still can get their full passives regardless, right?
Yeah.
Even if you know they're floating, but you have like slot 1 Gotenks and this Goten and Trunks put them on the Kamehameha category. Then slot 2, these guys providing 70% support. Then Trunks, or not Trunks, Krillin floating around providing all the extra support. Could be kind of nasty of a team.
Yeah.
With physical Goten and Trunks floating around and everything too. Like it could be a very fun looking team if they want to do that. But that's just an idea I have in my little brain. It would be another Majin Buu Saga buff, and maybe they'd be interested in doing like another random Dokkan Fest through the year. But we'll see. I mean, it almost feels like they're kind of setting these guys up. I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird because it's like they don't have, there is no meta relevant Krillin currently,
Yeah.
right? So it's they rely on each other. It's when you read their kit, like I was like, oh, okay, these guys seem really good until you stop when you take them into the event. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, neither of these guys can really go in slot 1 because they have like 170k defense start of turn with 50% damage reduction, which is just not enough. And then like post super, they're fantastic. But if you run one of them in slot 2 and float the other one, it means you have those multiple rotations where they're not together and then they don't look anywhere near as good. I think I when I did my showcase, they didn't start on the same turn. So Trunks in slot 2 without Goten, he's only doing like a 4 million attack stat. And then post super, his defense is only at most like 300k with 50% damage reduction, which I mean, against even the toughest bosses on global, he'll be taking damage from normal attacks, right? So they want to be run together, but neither of them can really go in slot 1. So that
what
physical...
I'm able to do on GP, which is funny, is because I'm able to run the Gogeta Blue Team movie heroes. So like I have the Gogeta Blues, and then like maybe I don't know, like Beast Gohan floating around. And then technically, I obviously would have the 3 target skills that I could just use at the last phases of the event, and they technically won't get hit.
And then they
anyways.
can go in slot 1. Yeah, that's kind of funny.
Yeah, you could do that, right? But besides that, it's a little difficult to set up.
Yeah, it's a shame because their performance when they are together is very good. And of course, you know, post super having 80% damage reduction is very strong. So hopefully, like I say, it's as Minato mentioned, like physical Goten and Trunks getting an EZA, they probably won't become a slot 1 unit. So a new release for the celebration where they could get their EZA that will actually be a slot 1 Goten and Trunks would definitely be very good. So and then that leaves me with physical Buu tanks, which is actually fine. Go.
Wait, can I say something real quick?
You can. I'll allow it.
Thank you, sir. Remember when AGL Kale first came out? Nobody liked the unit. Everyone was like garbage.
I liked AGO Kel. Thank you very much.
But I saw the vision, right? We knew that eventually that category was going to be on the rise. Kale was ahead of her time, just like these 2 sub EZAs are ahead of their time. Because all they need is a good slot 1. And while they can't necessarily provide that, though, I will say if you give Goten max dodge, it's not going to solve all your problems, but it does make for a very fun and risky sort of run.
Yeah.
So I actually have max dodge Goten
same.
and full additional Trunks. It actually works out fairly well. But eventually the youth category is going to get enough new units or EZAs to complete the circuit. You've got 3 core pieces right now. This is like an NBA team where we're assembling a roster here. We got our talent. We got Int Goten, we got Tech Trunks, and we got Int Gotenks, all right? Those are our franchise players. Now we got to build our bench around that team. And then with a good coaching staff, right, which is the person actually running the team, that category is going to be pretty good. So we're slowly going to get there. I'm telling you, invest in these guys. Their stonks are on the rise. Telling you.
Yeah, it certainly will be interesting.
In like 3 years, we get the Gotenks leader and they suck.
Don't say that.
Well, that's the funny thing
Don't
about
say that.
that's the thing about Kale is obviously Kale was kind of overlooked, and like when Universe 6 got all those buffs on global, she was actually still like very runnable still at that point, which is she just needed that team. But I think it's tougher for these guys because they need those other pieces for their team, but they have to be units with specific names in order for them to work. So hopefully we will get that. But
that's why I said again the Goten and Trunks team, man, and the Krillin team as well. Put Krillin on that.
Man, yeah, imagine a new I've wanted one for ages, but imagine a new family Kamehameha trio like card. And obviously that will be a unit that's name includes Goten. Make them a crazy good like slot 1 unit with a new animation, family Kamehameha active skill. Boom. There's a fire carnival LR right there. 200% to Kamehameha or something. But yeah, they're certainly would be interesting. So physical Buu tanks is the last one for me to talk about, which is actually fine because I feel like I'm one of the few people that actually kind of likes this guy. When his details all got posted, I saw a bunch of people saying like, oh, you know, these guys all seem pretty decent, except for physical Buu tanks. He's terrible. And then when I read his kit, I was like, well, he doesn't seem that bad. And then I kind of think he is in a similar sort of spot to what we were saying about STR Fat Buu, where if you're building a Buu team for Int Buu, and you need that like final unit to put on the team, I think he can actually be fairly decent. I think after like on the right rotation, he's getting up to something like 600k defense, and he has 30% damage reduction, which means he's eating all normals at least, which is fine. And of course, he has the 30% passive attack lowering, which is nice for events where you actually can lower attack. Someone posted a clip earlier of using the Buu team against STR Gogeta on JP, and physical Buuhan in slot 1 ate a super from STR Gogeta, partially because of the 30% attack lowering from this Buu tanks in slot 3. And yeah, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think he's like really good or anything, but he's one of those units, he fits kind of in that tier where it's like you're just hoping he doesn't get hit by a super and then he'll be fine, right? Which I think a lot of the units in the game are in that tier when we start talking about how hard some of these new bosses are hitting and stuff. Like, as long as the unit can, you know, manage normals, I think they're still runnable. It's just one of those things where you have to really hope that he doesn't take a super. And in events where you can do so, he can at least seal. Because he is, of course, funnily enough, being that he's Gotenks absorbed, he's very similar to the blueprint that some of the old Gotenks units were, where he gets most of his stats on super. He has the ceiling. I think he's very similar to like physical Gotenks, like when they first came out. But yeah, I mean, overall, like his attack stats were okay. He's getting around about or like close to like 10 mil without any support. And like I say, able, at least on global for now, right, can easily tank all normals, which for me, in terms of like a sub EZA, the fact that he is at least runnable, I thought he was definitely better than I expected. I think it's mainly because I guess I came into it from that perspective of everybody I'd seen comment on the EZA saying that he was trash and like the worst one. So coming into it from that perspective, I thought he was definitely better than that at least. But yeah, certainly nothing crazy, which is a bit of a shame. I've always really liked that unit and like his art and everything. I know he's quite old as well, like some of these guys here from this batch of EZAs. So I was definitely hoping that he would get a good EZA, and it's not terrible. I think the thing with him or the Fat Buu, it would have been more likely for him because he's not based around the nuking style passive. If they'd thrown some support into his passive, like if he had like marching power allies, like 2 key attack and defense 30%, he'd be significantly better as like an option that you would potentially run him as like a slot 3 floating unit on that Buu team, because he's got a little bit of damage reduction. His post super defense is good. So if he was providing, well, I say good, it's decent enough. So if he was providing support, then I think he would kind of have a place on the team as that sort of floating type character. But otherwise, for now, he very much just feels like he's a filler unit for the team if you don't know who else to put on as like the 6th unit. But he is at least runnable, at least for global. So, but yeah, Minato, I was going to say, you'll have to let us know once you actually try him out in some of the JP content. But
like I could just tell by his numbers. It's funny because like you take him into the Gogeta Blue fight, right? Like, oh, he lowers his attack by 30%, right? I think that's the number, right? But 30% reduction maybe won't be too bad. Then he gets hit by that AoE, and it's just like because
he gets all the stats on super as well,
yeah. So there's the AoE in that fight still, and let's say, okay, I don't know if this is exactly how it works. So 30% of 900k, what would that be?
It's like around 300k, right? Just roughly.
Yeah. So like, if he doesn't super attack for the 600k, he'll probably would live, but he'd take like from what I'm seeing, he had like 343k. But if Gogeta does super attack first and he gets the attack raise, then he's taking the normal for 846k.
Yikes.
Right. Or well, his AoEs actually do less damage, but
yeah, I mean, he is hardest hitting type disadvantage boss. So
yeah, that's the thing, is that a lot of these hard bosses now, you know, like how there's so many bosses. When else a little similar to that, but for STR, and that's an issue. Bro, someone. But no, it's like the physical typing is in a little bit of a troublesome spot right now. Now, once he super attacks, again, his defense gets decent, right? I've seen like 600, 700k with 30% reduction. I'm not going to say that's bad, but I'm just like, you know, he's also physical. But he has like some tools with him that I'm not going to be like he has some niche system that I do like. So maybe when I first saw his details, I was overhating him because like the 30% attack debuff I think could be useful. The seal could be useful, but the big events where those are useful is
there's
STR bosses.
There's one event in particular that I obviously for JP players, it's not one of the new like echelon of like the hardest events in the game, but for global players, when all the anniversary content starts coming out, and you've got to beat the stages for the first time, there's that blue Kaioken Goku boss that is int and can be attack lowered, so this guy would be really good in that event specifically.
I agree. And could that guy be sealed? I don't even know.
I'm not sure. I know he can be attack lowered because he's one of those ones like STR Vegito Blue from the Worldwide where he only has the 1 HP bar. It's like 1 phase and he can be attack lowered. So that guy will be really good against him, like when that stage comes out for global. But because it's not one of the final stages, it's not one of the ones that, you know, will get extra missions and will actually have a lot of replay like value. But I mean, when you come to beat it for the first time, if you want to use the Buu Saga team, then that Buu Tanks will actually be really good in that stage. But
I feel like it's a thing where this guy got a little more bad rep. And when I first read his details, I think I like undervalued him just because I was thinking of like the physical typing. I was thinking about, him getting all the stats on super. I think even then 30% reduction by itself, I just feel like is not enough in terms of like thinking about supers. But if you think about this guy like it's a floating team extra on the Majin Buu Saga team, he's doing some like nice little stuff. I feel like that kind of stuff. I would probably use this guy over the Goten and Trunk because they don't have a setup. I probably would use this guy over the Fat Buu, honestly, because he has some stuff to him in terms of the 9th anniversary content where he could be potentially useful. Now I just checked the Blue Kaioken and Goku can't be sealed, but him being able to do that 30% attack lure is pretty prominent because I believe I heard a while ago, if you guys weren't aware, that attack lowering in the passive is actually more potent than attack lowering on the super attack effects.
Really?
From what I heard. And it would be start of turn. So before any attacks he could do to you, that Blue Kaioken Goku boss, this guy will just lower his attack. So you're actually able to like just start off with a good jump. And same with any fight. After this, I'm gonna take him into the Gogeta fight and I'm gonna see him get a really good opinion. Because I feel like with a full dodge build, maybe he could be okay there.
Plus
technically he would guarantee crit in that fight too.
Plus, like if you get to if you get to STR Gogeta on the turn before this guy, and you can hit him with some extra attack lowers before this guy comes onto the rotation, then he's lowering his attack by even more. And because he's been attack lowered a little bit already, he might not take, he's not going to take as much damage from those attacks. But yeah, he seems like he could be fun. Try him out in some of those JP content and let us know in the future how good he is. But yeah, those 5 EZAs, they're all relatively solid. Goten and Trunks, like we say, could use a good future setup and then they'll be ready to go. Everyone else is just kind of, they can fit on teams. They certainly are runnable, but none of them, I think, necessarily are go-to picks for the team. Now that, of course, could be a bit of a segue into the last little major thing we're going to talk about for today, which is, of course, the physical Kid Buu Super EZA. This guy has the potential to be a must-run unit on pretty much any team build that he fits on, right? So I've got the first image up here on the screen. I talked about this in the video I put up earlier today, but if we go right from the beginning, the story of physical Kid Buu Super EZA. So Global had a common funny Global moment where we got this information in the news when the part 2 information came out, where you can see above the Super Battle Road stage announcements, they show the Majin Buu Saga category Dokkan Festival banner. And this banner is basically what JP got when Tech Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks got his Super EZA. And then this was very quickly removed from the news on Global because they hadn't made any sort of official announcement yet or anything. So this basically spoiled the fact that physical Kid Buu was getting his Super EZA, which, I mean, in terms of spoilers, I think it's one of those things people were happy to know that at least if we weren't getting the LR, we were actually getting a physical Kid Buu Super EZA.
Yeah.
So yeah, this guy, we got the official confirmation. There was the V-Jump scan, I think was shown yesterday. And then, of course, in the news today, we got the official confirmation on both versions that the Super EZA stage is actually coming out. So this guy is a pretty old unit from his original release, like before his actual EZA. And I feel like at every stage of this unit's existence, right, from his first release to then when he got his EZA so he could become runnable again, he was that guy that you just put on teams. Because back in the day, especially when he was first out, I don't think there were any other units in the game that gave 50% attack and defense. It was restricted by your start of turn HP, but no other unit, I think, gave as much support, especially considering it was to all allies. So yeah, this guy's getting his Super EZA. So Theo, obviously we didn't get LR Kid Buu, but we're getting this guy's Super EZA. What are your thoughts about this guy being the Super EZA choice? I know some people wanted to see things maybe like Int Gohan or Int Buuhan, but we're getting this guy. What do you think, and what would you like to see from his Super EZA?
I mean, I think that like it's kind of funny because in a little bit of a way, like it's sort of an unintentional spit in the face because it's like, oh well, we know y'all wanted Kid Buu, so here he is, Super EZA Kid Buu, you know, which is definitely not the LR, but like with the memes, you know, like aside, obviously, I think that it actually is a really good pick. You know, again, it's sort of like this celebration, I think, has done a very good job of like rounding out the character choices, I would say, for you know, like different versions of characters and like different characters throughout the Buu saga getting different attention, right? Like I mean, I think really the only like double up that we had basically was Tech Ultimate Gohan and then LR, right? Ultimate Gohan. You know, we had, you know, Fat Buu and Super Saiyan 3 Goku, and then Ultimate Gohan and now Kid Buu. So it's nice that there's some like varied character choice on that. And obviously we were just talking about before that, you know, of course any villain buff is welcome because the villains need it. So, and not to mention, right, with Kid Buu being throughout the game's history anyway, right, maybe not like necessarily nowadays, but I don't know, I still see some people run him sometimes. He is pretty, you know, like well known as one of the best support units in the game's history, right? So I think as long as, in terms of like what he'll actually do kit wise, I think as long as they can just kind of keep that alive, right, and sort of bring him back to that former glory of basically being like one of, if not the best support unit in the game, you know, while also maybe giving my boy a little bit of utility, because I remember back in the day it was like, man, he's so good at supporting everybody else, but I feel like he himself doesn't really do too much. And maybe that's asking a little bit too much because obviously you can't have a unit do everything, but it would be nice if he could kind of pull his own weight a little bit while also still doing his main purpose, which is, of course, you know, the big boy support. So I think as long as they do the support, I would be satisfied with him. It would be a nice additional thing if he could kind of, you know, strut his own stuff. But yeah, I think as long as they nail that support aspect of him, I think he'll be cooking. So and honestly, you know, it's cool too that you know, with it being the next Super EZA rather, I think they've done a pretty good job of like picking characters so far. It's kind of funny that all of them have technically been Buu Saga. I don't know if that was intentional. It is kind of funny though that it's just like, you know, that's just kind of the way that it worked out. I think it might have just been like the timing of, you know, like when the Super EZA came out compared to when all of the you know, compared to when the celebrations were out for whatever was relevant. But either way though, right, I think that it's another very good choice for a Super EZA, right? I think they've been doing a good job on the picks, right? I don't think there's really been one so far that I've seen and I've been like, yeah, I feel like this guy didn't really deserve it or didn't really need it yet, or somebody else, right? I think they're doing a good job on that too. So, and it's nice that hopefully that means that it will be a good like variation, because obviously the first two characters were heroes, and obviously now we have the first villain, Super EZA. So, that would be cool if it was like in every two characters. Maybe I don't know if they'll necessarily like stick to that pattern concrete or anything. But that would be an interesting way to do it. Although that is a little bit restrictive in some regards. But either way, though, my point is that it'll be nice to, you know, have some more villain characters get Super EZAs, because that's just another way for villains to, you know, get the buffs that they desperately need. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on the boy. Still no LR Kid Buu, but you know, we vibe.
Well, that's the thing as well, is this guy, of course, is a, you know, he's an extreme character and he has big bad bosses. So any of these teams with villain characters, with big bad bosses, this guy will be an interesting addition if they do, of course, make his Super EZA good enough. But I mean, I think we kind of have agreed in the past when we've talked about them, like the Super EZAs, they're 2 for 2 so far. Like they're both really good. They didn't come out and instantly be like, oh my god, these guys are the best TORs in the game now, but they're very good. Obviously for global, of course, we don't actually have Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks yet, but so for us, Kid Buu will be the second Super EZA.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that. That's
Yeah.
weird.
It's crazy because like that Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks would be so beneficial because you know Goku's team linking up with Goku being another Super Saiyan 3, Gohan wants a Gotenks, so it's definitely a noticeable thing that we don't have him on Global. It'd be nice to be able to add him into those teams. But yeah, Toon, what are your thoughts about Kid Buu being the Super EZA, and what would you like to see? Because of course, the one thing we should mention, for those of you, I'm sure you're all aware, of course, at this point, but Super EZAs, they do not update the leader skill, they do not update the super attack effects, and this guy, much like the Goku, doesn't really have a super attack effect. I think he does damage and I think lowers defense. So any like big juice up they want to give to his like defense, for example, is going to have to all be in the actual passive itself. So yeah, Toon, what are your thoughts and what would you like to see?
Well, number one, his support. I want it to eclipse the 50% or 60% EZA thing. So all of those units do, what is it, 50? Is it 50% base support for their type, but then an extra 10% for the class, right? That's how their EZAs
so.
work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this one straight up just transcends that, and this one will be an all allies key plus 360% stat support when your health is above 80%. They need to give him abilities to get back to 80% or above, so I expect regen in his passive. I also hope that he gets some sort of defensive maneuver like a dodge or a damage reduction or both, just so that you have a chance to fairly consistently do the 80% or above clause, or if you have to drop down to 79%, they give him a good enough substitute passive. So I just really want the support game to be good. And then after that, I don't know, whatever they got to do to make Kid Buu worth running, because everyone is chomping at the bit to have a Kid Buu on their team. And right now the only one is STR Kid Buu, who is good, who's decent. I don't want to say good, who's decent, like, you know, in certain situations. I just want this guy to be a unit that can fully function on a Majin Buu Saga team or just other extreme class teams and not be a dead weight. So whatever that means, if it's just support and then like all damage reduction, fine. If it's like a bunch of dodging and guarding and damage reduction, all the combinations of that, fine. Just make him not get me killed. That's all I need.
Yeah, because like that one thing I'm really looking forward to is running him on like the Zamasu team, right? Because Zamasu has worldwide chaos, and especially on global with like physical Rose. That rotation of like Zamasu and Rose, and then Kid Buu in slot 3 for all this support. You know, they're gonna go crazy. When it comes to the support itself, I don't know how willing global would be to go higher than the 50%. Because I say global, I meant Dokkan, but because it's all allies, right? But one thing I could definitely see, and you touched on it with talking about the type supports where they give that extra support that is conditional. I could see him being like 50% and then he gives 10% or maybe even more to like Majin Power or Majin Buu Saga or even like Extreme or something like that, right? So he's giving that extra little bit of support, but only to specific characters, because then he'd still be good. I mean, 50% is still 50%, but then to certain characters he would be giving more. I think that that's something I could see. Because it's all allies, I don't know if they would necessarily go.
I mean, I think the health restriction makes up for it, right? Like if it was just straight up all allies 60%, that might not be something that we're ready for yet. But
I disagree. I think that we've been getting so many really good busts of supports that have been giving 50% multiple turns. Krillin and 18 to superheroes, best team in the game. They get 50% stats to 2 turns, right? There's a lot of really good support characters that are giving more than 50%. I mean, we just saw Goten and Trunks only attack. They can give 70% attack, right? I don't think that for Super EZA, whose gimmick is to be a support character, that him giving 50% attack and defense and 2 key to all allies is not going to be a big deal. What I think they will do is that they're going to restrict other parts of his kit to want to be ran on Majin Buu Saga or Majin Power.
Okay.
Because if you take a look at every character released in the celebration, almost every character has a restriction for a Majin Buu Saga ally on rotation, for Majin Buu Saga allies for their intro animation, right? Super Saiyan 3 Goku wants a Buu Saga on rotation. The Tech Exchange wants Majin Power allies on rotation. The Hercule, the Buu Buu tanks, and the Fat Buu EZAs that just came out want Buu Saga allies on rotation. Same with LR Ultimate Gohan, right? So they're building these characters to want to be ran on this team specifically. So I think what they'll probably do is they'll make this Kid Buu have his support for free, but it's going to be a thing where he gets extra stats or extra dodge or whatever from having Majin Power or Majin Buu Saga allies on rotation, right? But they'll make them really good because of that. Because if you take a look at the other Super EZAs, they're not restricted that way, but they can make it a thing where this guy, even though he wants to be ran on the team, he'll be by far the best Super EZA character, right?
Yeah.
That's where I think they'll take him personally, and it's not that big of a deal because his ideal, while it would be great if he's got an every single extreme class team, I don't trust him to do that for villains. And I think
That's fair. That's fair.
His best partners will be the Majin Buu Saga team, and the best extreme class team right now is the Majin Buu Saga team. So I don't think it's that big of a deal necessarily, anyways, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I think
like maybe he gets 30% reduction, then an extra 20% reduction if there's a Majin Power ally on rotation.
Oh, that's not enough. I need more. If his super attack is not going to be changing since it's a super EZA, there needs to be more. But we'll see.
I mean,
I think
Tech Gotenks is fine.
Yeah, the biggest thing that they need to do, I think they did it with like the Goku as well, right? Is that because they can't change his super attack effect, they just need to give him like, obviously we want him to have start of turn attack and defense as well. But to just put the thing in his passive where he's getting like, 150% attack and defense on super or something like that, right? Because they can't give him the super attack effect in his super, but by giving a unit that bit in their passive where it says like on super, it is essentially like substituting in a super attack effect. And I think, isn't it, Minato, you know a bit more about it than I always forget, but like the on super buffs in their passive, does that take into account like the support on the rotation and stuff as well? So it's like the better buff.
Yeah, so what happens is support would be start of turn. So let's say he gets 150% attack and defense start of turn, and he's providing 50% stats to all allies. That would essentially be 200% start of turn. Then when he gets 150% attack and defense on super, that is multiplied on top of that.
Yeah,
his start
so
of turn plus support. Right?
That's the best way for him to get the buff. Funnily enough, you touched on something interesting that I hadn't really thought of, is of course, he is the first super easy. I mean, we've only had a couple, right? So we're still sort of seeing how they're testing out the waters, but he's the first super EZA unit that is a support unit, so it's not beyond the realms of possibility that he becomes like the best support unit in the game, essentially.
And it's really funny because they gave the existing super EZA support abilities, so like they're gonna give him the opposite, because like Gotenks gives super class and extreme class like different buffs. Like, funny enough, Gotenks gives extreme class allies 33% attack for 3 turns, which makes him like runnable and those Buu teams and like shorter events, even because he's supporting them for 3 turns, right? But like they gave Super Saiyan 3 Goku crit chance support, which makes him like really good with the existing AGL Super Saiyan 3 Goku Angel that just came out. So like this Kid Buu, I think I could see him being made in a way where he'll be good on the Majin Buu Saga team of some sort. And since he's already supporting, like, are they gonna give him some extra different mechanic, or what are they gonna do with his kind of situation? Are they still gonna give him multiple turn support for the first few turns? Like, what if he has 50% support, but then for the first 3 turns he's also giving an additional like 10% attack and defense to all ally, right? Because a lot of these, or he gives, I don't know, crit chance or
something. I think someone said in the chat about the whole because we've not, I don't think, have we seen another unit do it since his release, but there's the whole Path to Power Kid Goku thing as well, right? With the certain amount of orbs he gives all allies damage reduction, which would obviously be another thing.
No, we don't have that.
Useful. That'd be super
like
good
what
for
if
him.
he gets, what if he has like I don't know, 40% reduction, and then when he collects like a few keys, like they make him a rainbow orb changer, then when he collects 7 key spheres, he also gives 10% reduction to Majin Buu Saga allies, which includes himself.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
And then he gets 50% reduction, but then he also gives all Majin Buu Saga allies 10% reduction on top of that.
Well, the funny thing is that I hadn't thought of is you were saying about obviously some of the broken support units that we've actually gotten recently. Imagine if they because of course he has that thing at the moment where he gives a certain amount of support when you're above an HP threshold, and then he gives less support when you're below the threshold. Imagine if his support is just 50% attack and defense regardless, but if you're above the HP threshold, then it's for 2 turns instead of 1. Like something
That
like
could
that for
be
that team would
kinda
be
crazy.
insane, right?
I wonder how they would like implement this. Like, yeah, I guess it'd be if you enter the turn above 50%, 80% HP, attack and defense of 50% to all X for 2 turns. If you enter the turn 79% HP or below, it's just for 1
Yeah,
turn.
because imagine
could
the
do that
setups for
for
like
sure.
the next rotation where you've got your like transformed Buhan next to, I don't know who example, but like units for big bad bosses, or you've got the Zamasu and Rose and stuff like that. That's something I hadn't even really thought about before, but yeah, him having the potential to have multi-turn support.
They could easily do that,
very
actually. That's a great
interesting.
idea. I never thought about that. That's going to be my video tomorrow. I'm going to talk about it. That's actually that makes sense, because what they've been doing recently is they've been giving these characters abilities to support for multiple turns, right?
Yep.
And I think that's been a pretty big thing for these recent supportive characters. The multi-turn support is pretty effective. Like even Ultimate Gohan gives multiple turn support. We see again Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks and Super EZA Super Saiyan 3 Goku, right? Those 2 characters give multiple turn support.
Yep.
Ejo Pan's EZA gives multiple turn support.
On Super,
I'm sure there's other characters I could list, but I'm just gonna start I would just start going off on like on a tangent, right? But again, the one that stands out to me is the Krillin 18 during the anniversary. So like, yeah, if you're above 80%, 50% attack and defense for 2 turns would be sick. That's like his big gimmick. That would be awesome. I would love that, actually.
Yeah, so he has the potential to be very good. Like I say, I mean, as long as his EZA makes him runnable, he's probably going to be this like must-run support unit for any team that he fits on. But obviously we have to wait and see. Details, I think we would probably expect at the earliest is going to be tomorrow morning or something, right?
It's going to be on the 19th, because
Yeah,
we know because what Global did is they did a funny again where because it's the weekend for Global, I guess, and it's the same thing with the Wuhan Red Zone. Since it's going to be the weekend, they put the event teaser up early, because the event, funny enough, so the event's going to come out on the, I think, 21st or something. Is that whenever the banner goes up? But the data download, we know, is on the 19th, because they posted the preparation period for the 19th.
Right.
And that's when the GP, there's going to be a maintenance in GP. I don't know why. I'll have to look into that. But there's going to be a maintenance in GP on the day. So we're going to get the reveal on Sunday, essentially.
Okay.
I just went on a whole tangent for that. But yeah.
But yeah, so Physical Kid Buu, Super EZA coming next week. Should certainly be interesting to see how they do this. The first Extreme Super EZA. So definitely looking forward to that. And on the topic of Kid Buu, I guess one minor thing to address here as well at the end is the fact that we got confirmation essentially from that V-Jump scan as well that the new stage for the Red Zone that's coming out is going to be Kid Buu. So Theo, in terms of how that stage is going to play out, what do you think we could see, bearing in mind we've had, I think all 3 stages that we've had so far have all been fairly different in structure, which has been quite nice. So yeah, what would you like to see from the Kid Buu Red Zone stage?
All the gimmicks that we've had so far, I think, have been pretty cool. It's definitely like, I don't think that this Red Zone is too difficult, right? Even with like the, the category missions that have been there for it. However, that is one thing that I have definitely enjoyed a lot, is like, trying to do these different gimmicks and trying to like, maybe try and make it like the actual like fights that they come from, sort of, right, with some of the things that they do. I think in terms of just like generally speaking, right, I would hope that they would want to do something that's maybe more like Kid Buu's sort of like wild-esque nature almost, right, where it's like obviously because the whole thing is that he's like the rampaging beast or something like that.
I don't know. You're going to get 3 AoEs.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know how they would do that, because the only thing I could think would be if they just did like a bunch of super attacks or a bunch of like AoEs or something like that. Which I know it's like on paper, it's like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. But then like as an actual mechanic, it's like, this just sucks,
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, right? You know, up until this point, we've had like the, like the HP lowering, a couple of different things that they've obviously done, right? Where it's always kind of funny with these stages that have been doing it now, where like you go in and then all of a sudden the screen flashes red and you're just like, what just happened, bro? So I don't know. I think if they do something like that, maybe, I don't know. I think the AoEs and like the, like whatever kind of super attack that they would do, it could work as long as they just don't make it like annoying. Like I think that that's the big difference is that when it comes to a lot of those fights, right, that people like complain about a lot of the time, that I feel like, a lot of the community agrees aren't necessarily like super fun, I guess you would say, right?
Yeah.
I think the difference is like having a balance of making it like not too overwhelming and over encumbering basically, and making it still like enjoyable to play, but also having that difficulty. So I don't know. I think as long as they do something like that, I think that it'll be a fun fight. I do hope that they do make it, though. I know it's ironic saying that considering everything I just said, but I do hope that they make it a little bit more difficult because honestly, like I was kind of hoping that the Buhan fight would be a little bit harder. And again, like I don't know. Obviously I'm running like very good units, right? Like I'm
You're running
definitely
Beast Gohan's team,
right? Like basically every time, or like even what was the mission for the Buhan Red Zone for this one?
Powerful comeback.
Powerful comeback. Yeah.
Oh yeah, on JP we had such
Right. On JP, right, we literally have Blue Evo, which is basically just like a free win, essentially.
We just have a Universe 7 team, essentially, right?
Yeah. It's like, it's definitely with the characters that we have on JP, it was not hard whatsoever, even just doing like, because I did the category mission first before I even did
same.
like anything else. Yeah. And I don't know, I thought it was really easy. So I just hope that they actually make it a little bit more difficult. And not to mention, with the category mission, I feel like it's always kind of a hard thing to like quantify, right? Because you don't want to pick a category that's like bad or like really specific, because then it makes it like not fun as much, like our favorite like special pose missions and whatnot. People are really not as much of a fan of those because the teams are so limited, right? Or like sometimes I see Otherworld Warriors thrown around, which funny enough, until I guess like almost semi recently, that category wasn't that good, but obviously it's gotten some good buffs recently. However, like, I don't know, you also don't want to make it a category that's just like straight up bad, you know? So I don't know. I feel like having a good mission, well, I mean, yes, a good mission, but a good balance, right, for the mission is important too, where you can still, have fun. So I don't know. I think as long as they do that, right, I think that they'll be golden. It will be interesting to see what they do, though. Right, Kibu we are like sure that he is the last stage. That's correct, right?
We are not sure, no.
It's not
He's
confirmed.
not? Okay.
My theory.
It could be Oob.
That's my theory.
That's what a lot of
theory
people have been saying.
That's my theory. I started it.
Okay, sorry. I'm sorry.
No, I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm just saying I said it first. I was like, okay, my theory is that the last seed is going to be Oob because we don't have a support memory teased, and it's like we usually get support memories for these red zones. So my thoughts is that we're going to get Oob as the last stage in the last week, and then we're going to get a support memory for Goku and Oob leaving at the end of Dragon Ball Z.
That would be cool.
Okay.
That's my idea that I thought of. That I'm sure other people have thought of, but I'm taking.
He said my idea. TM. Do not steal.
Yeah. If anyone else says it, it's because I said it. But yeah. Oh yeah. By the way, you're gonna have a clip for you that you can check out later. But I'm just gonna put it in the chat right here.
I see. Is it for Buu? Is it Buu tanks by any chance?
Yes.
Okay, we'll put the link up at the end. So yeah, Toon, in terms of Kid Buu Red Zone, also as a fellow global player, how did you find the powerful comeback mission for the new Buhan stage?
I liked the challenge that global players had as opposed to JP. It was definitely fun having to rely on. The most ironic thing happened for me personally. I was trying to get the tech revive Goku to die, and he would never die. like the first time ever. Every other time I don't need him to res, he will do it. This time around, he would not die because for him, he's one of the main options you're going to be using for that on global right now, right? And so if he does his own revival, he can retain his guard. If World Tournament Goku does the revive, then the bird coup doesn't get to utilize that ability.
Yep.
But if you flip the script, if somebody else revives, the World Tournament Goku still gets that extra effect. So for me, the challenge was simply trying to get the right unit to get me killed so that everybody could benefit from the revival. But in general, it was still fun, like having to use lesser characters compared to JP. It was not as challenging for me personally as the first stage was and all of the missions associated with that, which I guess that kind of is a bummer. But overall, I've just been very happy with how they've done these first 3 stages. I would imagine that when they do drop the Kid Buu one and whatever other stuff in between, if they do, it's still gonna be fun. And I don't think every subsequent stage has to necessarily be tougher than like the previous ones. Yep. As long as it gives something new, something different. Because it seems like this new chapter of the Red Zone arc, it's actually been pretty. It's been pretty awesome. Like they've really made you think now. Like you have to very strategically plan your moves. You have to plan your units. You need to overwrite the territory skill. You have to know which characters can seal, which characters can do this and that and this and that. So as long as they just keep me on my toes with something, I'll be happy. It doesn't necessarily have to be like, you know, they will kill you slot 1 frame 1.
That's why Spring Battle Spectacle is so fun, because it's like there's bosses you could slower attack, there's the territory skills, you could seal, you could stun certain bosses, attack, like an attack them, like I said. Like Kid Buu, it'd be interesting if maybe like he has like some sort of even like barrier you have to break down or something, and then you eventually can attack him. And then he becomes Sleepy Buu, where you attack him when the barrier is down and he's sleeping. They can make the fight really interesting if they really wanted to. But I think it just depends on how they want to take things. They've been doing a great job at introducing these new skills that they said they would be introducing to the enemies, which I find very fun. So
yeah, one of the things that I've seen a lot of people say, someone was in the chat was saying it as well, I've seen a few people mention it in my streams, and that is, imagine if they give him a phase. It doesn't have to be the whole event, of course, but a phase similar to his old Dokkan event, where like he only attacks 3 times in the turn, but they're all super attacks. Now of course, with the attacks that Kid Buu does, like it would be a Ki Blast super, so there's a bunch of options for countering it, negating it, dodging it, that kind of thing. You know, maybe not everyone is hitting you for like 3 mil or something crazy like that, but something like that could certainly be an interesting, different thing they could do, which is a callback to that Dokkan event. I think that would be kind of fun. But yeah, for that Buuhan mission, I actually got quite lucky because I didn't run Bird Coup because I was worried about the, you know, someone else is going to end up reviving and then he's going to get me killed later. Because I went into it and did Powerful Comeback as the first run, so I didn't know what to expect from the event at all. And I got really lucky because I ran double, I think, 23rd World Tournament Gokus, but I put in Fat Buu on the team and he just got killed immediately on his first turn. So then straight away, him and both the 23rd World Tournament Gokus were just already like switched on, like good to go. And then yeah, they just like it was a long run. I think the first completion for doing the Powerful Comeback mission, I think it might have been close to or even over 30 minutes, which was kind of funny. Even with some of the other teams, I just had a video go up on the channel for the Int Buu team versus the Buuhan stage, and that was about 31 minutes, I think. Which, sidebar, I actually love using Tech Gohan EZA on the Int Buu team.
it's very fun.
He only shares 2 links with Fat Buu, but one of them is a key link, so he can just sit in slot 1. He only needs 1 key, and then Int Buu goes off in slot 2. He's really good post super because my Int Buu's only 55%. So that rotation of them actually works really, really well. But yeah, in terms of Kid Buu, be cool to see what they do for him for the Red Zone boss. I do agree that I think we are going to see another stage because we haven't had any information about like a support memory or anything like that. And you know, Minato did mention it. He was the first person I saw mentioning it, so shout out to him. I think we talked about it on an episode, maybe even 2 episodes ago. But if there was going to be an extra stage, I mean, how else do you follow up Kid Buu for a Majin Buu Saga Red Zone unless it is Oop, right? So
I mean,
I guess it could
the
be
only
against
thing-
Goku at the end, but they don't normally
Oh,
throw
that'd be
in.
No.
cool.
Teen
But that- they
Goten.
wouldn't do that.
That'll
though. They
be
wouldn't do
it'll
that, though.
be again. A lot of people are like, "Oh, we're gonna get Majin Buu Saga over Tanabata as well. Where we'll get LR Kid Buu." I don't think so.
No.
But if they would do that, it would be a supreme metal spectacle where we fight the good guys.
Teen Goten.
Yeah.
Because
Honestly, though,
the literal like they literally marketed this supreme metal spectacle as where you could actually fight superclass enemies now, fight different types of enemies, right?
Yeah.
So that's what that's for.
Mhm.
Or,
I
like,
will
the
say, I
enemies.
do think the only thing that they could do besides Oob, right? Because obviously, like Kid Buu is literally the end of the saga, so it wouldn't really make sense to, like have something after that or like go back to a previous
Yeah.
Oob form.
Yeah.
The only thing I could think that they would do would maybe be like just have one where you fight like every form of Buu. Like I know that would be pretty crazy, and I don't think that they would do that honestly. I mean, at that rate, it would basically just be like legendary, fighting legend Buu. I
Yeah.
guess.
I guess
but-
that would be like the stage 6 when they had the boss rush. That's what that is, right?
Yeah, I don't know. That would have to be like some like rather big thing, I would think, because it,
with
you
the-
know.
Yeah, with the boss rush, we fight the last phase of every fight. So we would fight the Bobbity Boo, we would fight the Super Boo, we would fight. I guess they probably would put the whole Buuhan fight because that's all. Is that all one phase or multiple phases? That's multiple phases.
Yeah,
right?
Buuhan is like it's like Buu
Mhm.
tanks, then Buuhan, then Buu tanks again, then is it
I
Buuhan again,
wonder-
and then Buff Buu. It's kind of weird, but and then
What
the
would they do? Would they?
oh no, it's Buu
just,
Piccolo and then Buff Buu. Yeah.
I guess they would just put that entire fight in there because it's like the strong. Because usually the strongest phase is the last phase. They're not gonna put the last phase.
Yeah, because
in-
that Buff Buu, he can actually hit really hard, but
Yeah.
he I got a video, I think it's that one that's just gone up using the Int Buu team, but like because of how much he can stack up at that point, I'm pretty sure Tech Gohan just like one turns that Buff Buu like by himself at the end because
He has
he doesn't have a lot
35
of
no HP
HP.
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he just has no HP. Right. So I would assume they would just put the whole fight in there. It'd be the Kid Buu fight last phase, and then boom.
Yeah.
Like I could see Oob
That'd
because
be interesting.
I could see Oob as a one-turn fight because we haven't had Kid Buu could be a one-phase fight because they banned the nuking leaders and they only do that when we have fights that are just one like phase.
Right.
That's the only fights they banned the nuke leaders. So if Kid Buu is not a one-phase fight, then that tells me that we would get an Oob fight, which
That would make
realistically
sense.
the Oob fight would be the one that makes I think the most sense to be a one-phase fight.
Yeah.
Because it's like you just fight Oob, and then Kid Buu like regenerates and everything like that. So him being multiple phases makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean they could
Plus
have
they could
multiple
do-
phases with the different arts and stuff, right? And like you said, have the
Yeah.
Yeah.
sleeping one and stuff like that. Like, could be
Plus,
interesting.
they could do like how obviously Kid Buu like spits out Fat Buu at that one point because he's like, oh, time to get rid of the last little bit of good I got in me, bro.
That's true.
Mhm.
I guess they could do that as like the reasoning behind like another phase or
Yeah,
like you said, right? Like when Riku's fighting him and Vegeta's having his speech and then Goku like not like completely destroys him, but then he starts reforming. Like that could be another stage, right? So I think that they have options to make Kid Buu.
They
like, a
could,
bunch of stages.
I mean, I said this once, but I think Ningen, I told you where it's like, okay, you have to do certain damage to actually do damage to be like
Yeah.
the Gohan fight, which makes sense in the series.
would be
with
cool.
The Spirit Bomb finished them off.
yeah.
It's like, what if they
Yeah.
set it up where like you have a final phase where you have to like nuke?
Yeah, I
And
was gonna
then-
say it could be like that Spirit Bomb event, that we got during the anniversary.
I
Not
love
not
that
in the
event, by
terms
the
of
way.
not in the terms of what the way the event actually works. I was just thinking of one specific thing that they could use is obviously even though it's just Kid Buu, it could be multiple phases, but then they already have that like animation. It's like the thing that plays if you don't actually kill him, and then it
Mhm.
just shows all of like the bits of him like coming back together, and then like the next phase would just be a different typing like Kid Buu. But something like that could be interesting, yeah, if like to finish him off in the last phase. Like imagine if they made it as opposed to a countdown, like kind of like Golden Frieza, right, where you have to kill him before he does the countdown super and kills you, unless you dodge it or counter it or whatever. They could work that in for like that thing I was saying about the super like every single attack gimmick, is imagine if like that's the final phase, he only attacks say 3 times in the slot. None of them are in slot 1, so you don't get immediately supered, but it's like they're all super attacks. But if you hit him with an attack that does, I don't know, X amount of million damage, then it just kills him. So if you have a unit in slot 1 that can do that much damage, you just go into that final phase and then you blow him away, which then obviously for thematic purposes would be really awesome to use the Spirit Bomb for either of the 8th anniversary characters. Would be super cool to actually finish him off with the Spirit Bomb on that final stage. So that would be very cool. So, but yeah, I guess we'll wait and see. We don't have to wait too long. We'll get the details in the data download, like the stats and everything. And then that stage, I believe, comes out either on Monday or on Tuesday with the Kid Buu Super EZA, right? So
we won't know the stats until the event comes out. But
right, okay. Because I think, let me just double check. I think it is in the news on Global, but I think the new stage comes out on Monday morning for me, which is like late Sunday evening for US. Permanently available. Yeah, Monday. Stage 4 permanently available from Monday at 7 a.m. So it's like midnight or like late night Sunday for if you're in Pacific time. So yeah, that'll be out
in the middle
Monday
of
morning.
maintenance during that, so it'll be later.
So
yeah,
I guess that makes sense.
I'm pretty sure the stage drops on the 20th, and
okay, so yeah, that'll be out Monday at some point. And then we'll be able to check that out. So we'll be able to talk about that on the next episode of the podcast. Nice. But Red Zone Kid Buu coming up. Maybe with his release, we'll get some kind of information about what stage 5 will potentially be, whether there'll be a support memory, anything like that. But obviously, as we find out that information, we will let you guys know. So that is
secret part 3 LR Kid Buu.
Wow, you know, the EX part, yeah.
The EX part, bro. You know what's so funny? Genuinely, one of my buddies who only like occasionally plays the game. He literally asked me. He was like, "Wait, we're not getting a part 3 LR Kid Buu," and I was like, "Brother, no, that's not how the game works."
Can I just
throw this? Can
I just throw this out there? What if Global gets Tanabata next, and what if in that Tanabata we get an LR Kid Buu?
Man. I know
that'd be fun.
That is the big thing that we've talked about for like in and out as we've speculated as the weeks have gone on with how things like with the sync will be handled. But Tanabata is still the big question mark hanging over Global.
I think we're getting it.
It's, I think it would make sense for Global to get it next before the anniversary because of how that helps the game sync up. But as a global player that only has a limited amount of stones, I really don't want it to be before the anniversary. Yeah. But I guess
I think that's how it's going to be because we got that world tournament coming up. I think.
What do you mean? That's not happening for a couple of years. What?
Oh yeah, the data in the database. Yeah, it's like a year.
I'm convinced my doppelganger works at Dokkan. Those are Toon L's that they're doing. Like that's the kind of stuff that I would do.
To be fair though, they did do that on JP as well. That wasn't like a global exclusive thing because at one point when they like introduced those EZAs, and I guess they just didn't want to like say when the actual world tournament was going to be. They're like, "Yep, you gotta wait a couple of years for these to come out." So it's not like it's not like a huge surprise. Yeah, it's still funny though.
I mean, in terms of Tanabata being next, I think that makes a lot of sense. And then what they'll do is right before Worldwide, they could have like a sync banner.
Oh, for global, yeah.
Yeah, I think Goku Black is next on JP.
Yeah,
because of the.
Oh, thank God I could skip.
Oh yeah.
The reason why I'm thinking Goku Black is next on JP is because we know that the apparently according to someone said it. Someone who looked at the IDs of the burst modes.
Rick,
yeah, exactly.
The goat.
We were talking about it, and we looked at the IDs of like the burst modes, and then it would essentially line up to the June release, unless I guess there's not a burst mode in June, next month is June, right? Yeah. So the UI Goku burst mode ID. In terms of JP, would line up to be released in June on JP.
Yeah, and that came out with Rose, so.
Yeah, and that came out with Rose, right?
Yeah.
But they could also just not do a burst mode in June on JP, and then he releases in August, but I doubt it. Which means that we'll probably have a part 2 on JP that Global didn't have.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, because, that's the big thing, right? If Rose comes out on Global, on JP, in a celebration that normally has a part 2, then obviously what will they do, right? Something completely different? Will they add on a part 2 that's related to Goku Black or Future Saga or Super Bosses or something?
I don't even know if the banner is going to be the same on GP.
I think, well,
They could
so the
put-
big thing, I think that's the other thing actually about Rose being next is because I think it interferes with the schedules in terms of banner units returning and stuff. Because Global got 21 on Boo's banner and JP didn't, I could see JP getting Rose next and 21 being on Rose's banner, because then they'll have both
Yeah.
returned at like roughly the same kind of time. And then JP's getting something that Global already has, so it means we're still advancing towards being caught up. So yeah, I think that's definitely something that we could see.
I think that there's a possibility that GP gets a banner unit.
Yeah,
And
that'd be
it's a
so
7
weird.
feature unit banner. I think that because we're already going to get a part 2 LR with that if he's in June. So I think it's entirely possible that GP gets a 7 featured unit banner with a banner unit. And Global just did a thing where they brought back the worldwide celebration LRs, which would be weird. Maybe there isn't a banner unit. There doesn't have to be. But I just find the idea of, like, you know, because that was like a special different banner with tickets that Global just put in there. But if it's not like that and it's a 7 featured unit normal Dokkan Fest, it would be kind of weird to not have a banner unit. So I don't know what they're going to do. Realistically, I don't know what they would do for that banner unit. Would that banner unit be on like a sync banner with like other Dokkan Fest?
Yeah,
'Cause,
that's the thing.
mean,
How
I
would they
guess-
put him on to global?
I guess that would
way?
be what it would be, because if they're going to do a sync banner where they put like Topo, Frieza, the August Dokkan Fest in one banner global, then the banners are going to be on that banner, of course, like the Carapesla and the Doria. So like they could just throw that banner unit on there. That would be for Rose's banner. And then, so it would be, how many yellow corner layers are missing in global? It's Ginyu and then the other yellow corner layer that'd be in June.
Yeah,
That's
because
it,
it's
right?
just Ginyu so far. Yep.
Yeah. It's just weird. This it's extremely possible that my theory at this point now is that the schedule's going to be synced, but not everyone's going to be in global somehow,
Yep.
because it just seems
I mean,
like
that
they
makes
put
sense,
themselves in
yeah.
a corner.
Well, yeah, because this
And
is the
then-
thing we talked about in the past, right? Is when the sync is officially like in play, it means everything that comes out that is new is going to be coming out on both versions at the same time. But that doesn't mean
Yeah.
that Global could still not be missing a few things, which then they just have to slot in around those other releases. Ideally, we would hope that they don't do that, but it means they have a lot to fit in to a short amount of time. So I guess we will have to wait and see. But yeah, I guess when, you know, Golden Week runs for basically the rest of the month. I think in terms of global, if we look at last year, the next Dokkan Fest that came out when Golden Week was officially over was on the 31st of May. So we are still basically 2 weeks away from like Golden Week celebration being fully over. So yeah, I guess at that point we will see what is coming next and what's going to happen on both versions of the game. So that is going to be it for the major topics of everything going on in Dokkan over this last week. We are going to be moving on here next to everybody's favorite segment. Before I do so, just another quick reminder, shout out to everyone who has contributed so far. Thank you for helping to support the podcast. If you have any other shout outs or questions or anything you guys want to get in before we get to the end, we will get to that segment of reading out all the super chats and donations once we have done with the next segment. So that is going to lead us into, as I say, everyone's favorite segment of the show. That's right. And this is the trash takes section. So we have a very interesting one this week. This is going to be interesting for global players. I know a lot of people anticipating the anniversary. You know, we don't even have this unit yet. But very interesting take here from Retri over on the Twitter side, which is Buuhan is better than AGL Broly. So I don't know how we talked about this a little bit before when we picked it. Toon, I don't know how much you want to get into this, because I don't know how much you, if at all, you've used Broly. I don't know if you've ever tried out any like private server stuff, but yeah, let me know your thoughts on this take, and I will get the poll set up as I often try to remember to do. Shout out to everyone if you are watching the show live. There'll be a poll in the chat for you to give us your thoughts on whether this is a W or L take. If you are listening on Spotify or rewatching the VOD, let us know in the comments. And of course, if you can make it out to a live episode, you can take part in the poll as well. So I'll set up the poll, and Toon, what are your thoughts?
I mean, it's very easy. Buuhan is a million times better than AGL Broly. Broly leads Pure Saiyans at 120%. He has attack and defense plus 70%, key plus 1 at the start of the turn. He's such an old unit, you know, like even with his EZA, he is an old unit. This Buuhan, he just dropped on global. All right, he's the big ticket item. Nobody cares about AGL Broly because he's old news.
I see what he did there.
It's a slam dunk, dude's preaching.
Yeah, just to I'm sure I
be confused.
I think maybe Toon thinks that I mean, we all know that he's just trolling, but I think Toon thinks that he's talking about AGL Wrathful Broly, whereas of course the take is referring to LR Broly from Dragon Ball Super.
Oh, he's not talking about the other one because he's out of his mind if he's talking about the other one.
Well, there you go. That turned around quickly.
bro literally pulled the two-face, bro. He said, oh yeah, no. That's crazy.
So yeah, Theo, thoughts?
Yeah, sorry, man. I didn't have much to say on that, so I had to think of something.
All right, so here's the thing, right? I suppose this surely, like, you know, listen, I know this sounds like I'm being like derogatory when I say this, but this surely must be a global player because this is somebody who has not tried the unit, right? Like, it has to be. I think that when it comes to this, I understand, I suppose, from the context of like, yeah, Fizz Buuhan, right? And I almost pulled the tune. I was going to start talking about Int Buuhan. Fizz Buuhan, right? Like, he's really, really good. I don't think anybody's going to deny that, right? I love that unit. I always had a soft spot for him. And then especially with this EZA, I've been like, wow, I've been super impressed with this guy's performance. But to say that he's better than Broly, I feel like is a bit overzealous for sure, because Broly is absolutely disgusting, right? Like, Broly is just a behemoth. And I'm saying this and I don't even have the man because he shafted me, bro, and I'm still gassing him up. And I think the thing about this, right? Oh, look at the cat. I think the thing about this one, right? The only like argument maybe that I could see for this being the case is something like, right now, I think it's pretty safe to say, right? I think you guys could probably agree that Buu's team is better, right? Like, I don't think that that's too out of line to say because there's just more good Buu characters to run than there are, I guess, like characters on Broly's team, maybe.
Yeah, like Beast on Broly's team.
I mean, listen, I know obviously that, but you know what I mean. Like, I feel like it's just more of a coherent team for Buu. Like, certainly Broly doesn't have bad options, but I feel like maybe that's an argument that could be made for this, right? Not to mention, right, with Broly himself, Broly is only actually going to get better as time goes on, because obviously we're eventually going to be getting that the domain update, right, where then you'll be able to use both Broly's transform them, right? Because obviously at the moment when you're running both on the same team, you can't.
Do we have any? Do we have confirmation that that's what the update actually is? I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure. I remember that being talked about a while ago.
I think Minato. Do you know? Are you? Oh no, he stepped away for a second. We know that they're doing some sort of update for like the domain thing, but do we know for sure that it is that you're going to be able to use multiple ones at the same time?
Nope. For all I know, they could just add a new mechanic to the domain effect, and then you still can't use them all at the same time.
Okay. Well, if that
People
is
are
the
jumping
case,
the gun about it, I think.
Gotcha. Either way, right? It will get some kind of buff, so that will be still some kind of buff for Broly, regardless. And I think that also, I don't know, man. Like, I always hate it when I say it like this, bro. But like, this is why we need the sync, bro, because then we won't have people saying stuff like this, man. Like, it's because it's just like ignorance, but it's ignorance to I don't know. Unless you like follow the game like that, I feel like I can't really fault it in this case because it's like, well, yeah, if you just play global and you only like, watch showcases or something, then I feel like I can't be as much of like a, how dare you type of thing. But
Yeah,
I don't
it
know.
does. It makes me wonder because obviously, like, if you are a global player, and fair enough, you may have watched some showcases. Like maybe you've seen Theo, Minato, Truth, anyone from JP, right? You've seen some showcases. You've seen like some stuff on Twitter, clips and stuff. You can have seen examples of how the unit works, but I feel like if that was me, I probably wouldn't be in a position then to make a strong statement that like this unit is better than this other unit that I've only seen like a couple of like clips or couple of videos for. But then I mean, at the end of the day, it's called the trash take segment, so who knows? Maybe they're
True.
maybe they, as we've said, just to clarify, of course. I wasn't able to get any clarification from this person before the show to give us some extra points or anything. So for all we know, we say in the tweet when we put it up that we're looking for takes that will be interesting to discuss. And they don't necessarily even have to be takes that the person who posts them to us agrees with or even is a take from them, right? It could be a take that they've seen someone else make and are then submitting it to us to discuss on the episode. Because I mean, that's the thing, like for me as a global player, when the anniversary was going on JP, I did a bunch of stuff with the private server, did videos for the new units and tried them out and everything. And I've said many times in the past, I think Broly is super underrated. I was chatting to the guys like before we started the show. Like, I know Beast Gohan is the best unit in the game. He's the one people are going to want to prioritize in terms of, if you've got him, you're pretty much golden. And then, of course, Gogeta is really, really good, has the target mechanic and everything. But for me, like, Broly is the unit out of the 4 anniversary units that I want the most. Like, I think he's massively underrated. I've always loved Broly. I like running the extreme team, even though, like, I think people didn't like the fact that with his lead and his team, people wanted to run like him as a villain leader, and it's like, oh, I can only run extreme characters on his team, and so it sucks because he doesn't have big bad bosses, and some of these other characters, like his full extreme team lineup is not as good as I would like it to be. And it's like he works so well with so many like Saiyan units, and he's not restricted to being run with extreme characters. And of course for global, we have Rose, and even though you can't use their domains at the same time, with the private server having all the units available, which of course neither version of the game actually had at the time, I did do a video using Rose and Broly on the same team. And even though you can only use one of their domains, like with the buff from Broly's domain, Rose can still be really good in his pre-transformed state. So I think Broly's really good. I'm really excited to get him. And if you've actually used him, like seeing the turn where you have transformed Broly in slot 1, untransformed Broly in slot 2, and then of course if you really want to juice it up, you could have like Int Golden Frieza in slot 3, and then Broly's doing like an over 30 million attack stat and then a bunch of additional like 20 odd million attack stats, and his defense after all of that is absolutely ridiculous. He guards, like he's just really, really good. And Buuhan is super good too. Like as a global player, I think we're all very excited that we got Buuhan and Vegito's EZA early. So we talked about this on the episode, when their EZA actually came out for global, is the Buu Saga team on global, either version, super or extreme, would have been considerably less impressive if we didn't get both of these EZAs. So those coming early to global was super, super good. And Buuhan, or Buutenks / Buuhan, super good as well. But yeah, I don't know. Is he as good as Broly? I don't think so. I don't feel like it's close, but I guess it's one of those things that I've only used Broly a few times. But yeah, obviously Minato, in terms of, you've heard what everyone else has had to say. I think the chat is definitely very much leaning one way if we look at the tape. Actually, no, it's changed a little bit. It's actually closer to being in the middle than I thought. But Minato, what are your thoughts on this take? I know you've used Broly quite a lot, and yeah, let us know. What do you got? What do you think about this one?
I think it's almost right. I think it's not bad at all.
Oh, okay.
I think that in my tier list I had Broly.
Yeah, let's kill it. No,
So I think on my tier list, I have them one space apart. I have Buhan under Broly. I do disagree with the take, but I don't think it's bad. I think that you can make arguments for it because they both do different things at the end of the day. Buhan is a defensive character that stacks up to enough defense to live a super attack. Then he has 50% chance to dodge, does decent damage, he heals, he has a lot of tech with him. Broly is just a major damage character that gets really, really high defense as well. But he's more damage orientated, and Buhan is more defense orientated. But they both excel in the hardest contents at their fields extremely well. So it's also again always weird to compare these kind of units that are doing different things. But I think that they're very close to each other in terms of power, and that's not me saying Broly is bad. Broly's really, really, really good. Again, I believe I had Broly, bro, like at 6 on my list, and then I have Buhan at 7 or something, right? I don't know the exact placements. Is I did it like a while ago, right? But I think that like they're both top 10 material. So it's like saying like this is a terrible take or anything like that doesn't really make sense to me because they're like at most 2 or 3 spots apart from each other. And if you think that Buhan is in a better space in the game right now because of the fact that Broly's team isn't that great, or maybe you feel like Broly needs a better update with the domain, and if you're running double Broly, he struggles, whilst Buhan slides very easily in the teams that he's on, I could see arguments for that. But I could also see when I use Broly, he one turns Gogeta blue, and I'm like, well, Broly just finishes off anyways, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I think that it depends on how your view is, and I just don't think that it's a bad thing to say in whatsoever.
Okay. Well, that's definitely a little bit. Like I say, as a global player who's only used Broly a few times, and of course using him on the private server, he's like Rainbow level 10 links. You have every unit at your disposal to put on his team. You're kind of seeing him at his best, like all the time, essentially.
I would say this isn't just my experience. I feel like I probably had the most experience with both characters here. I think is the one thing as well, and that's just because the characters are not on global. Right?
Yeah.
Broly's not on global.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think Dokkan Assets might be the second person here who has the most experience with both. But
even though I don't have Broly,
I was gonna say I think you didn't pull Broly, did you?
To be fair, I ran him as a friend a lot during during the anniversary. So
I feel like Broly is still just in general massively underrated. And I think if someone is like Buhan is like top 10 and Broly's not top 10, you're crazy, right? I think they both are in top 10 very close. I just think they're both doing different things. And you could say, oh, I prefer Buhan because of the fact that he has way less situations where he could die to Broly to like a Gogeta Blue Super than Broly. And I think that's true. If you have to run Broly as your slot 1 in Gogeta Blue, he can get one shot by that super attack. And whilst I wouldn't say that's his role, you know, sometimes if you're running like a movie boss's mission, right, that Broly has to be your slot 1.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, like I say, not having had as much experience. To me, Broly seems better, but I could certainly see that sort of... I mean, that's the thing, I guess. I disagree with the take from my own experience, but I wouldn't say, like, oh, you know, he's
I feel like
considerably better, like... Buhan, I would say for me, I would put below Broly, but as you've said, like Minato, it's not going to be like, you know, he's not 10 spaces below him or something, right? On a top, like, you know, 100 list of units or something like that.
Like, and I've gotten more mellow about like top 10 and stuff, anyways, because I think people overvalue like how important spot rankings are, and it's like if I have a character that's next to each other on a tier list, if you think like, unless I would have a gap between that. If you think that character in slot 6 is actually slot 7 and vice versa, then I'm like, sure.
Dude, that is literally I say that now in like every tier list video I make. I feel like I have to make the caveat that like, because you know some people get so when it's like you think this guy is above this guy and it's literally they're at like 4 and 5 or something.
Exactly, right.
When it comes to if I make those lists, it's like if you want to switch any 2 units that are next to each other, if you want to switch them around, I usually would not probably have many arguments against it, right? Because in a lot of these situations, you can make arguments for one unit being above another. And I think, as you said, and like Theo was saying about the Buu Saga team as well, like in terms of the specific event or the specific team that you're running, either one of these units could be more useful than the other one, right, in that situation. Because Buhan, once he's transformed, he's that classic extreme style unit. He has big bad bosses. Broly is kind of a bit wonkier to fit into those teams, but has other teams where he excels.
You could use Broly under Beast Gohan's team, and they work amazing together, right?
Yeah.
So it's like not that big of a deal. And I personally would agree with you. I think Broly is better. I don't think there's a gap though. I think Buhan has his own tools that just make him look powerful. I mean, like no matter what, like Broly can't be like 2 mil defense start of turn with 50% chance to dodge. With obviously they both have guard, right? But and then Buhan's also healing. Buhan has the seal ability, which could be used in certain situations.
Yeah.
But then Buhan is not doing Broly's 28 mil into 5 additionals with all crits that are built into his kit, right?
Yeah.
There's definitely a difference between the two roles I was doing, but
Yep.
I would say in terms of the value and difficult content, they both provide a similar level of overall value, depending if you're looking for offense or defense, right? In both spectrums. So yeah, that's why I feel like saying it's like a straight up L garbage take, I would disagree with. I would say I disagree with like the take still, but I would not say it's like the worst take ever. So I guess if I was to decide in my personal rankings, I don't agree, but I don't think it's an L take per se, right?
Okay.
You could even say, you know what? Screw it, W take, because if you like defense better, defense will technically age better. I think Buhan will probably age better than Broly, in terms of what he's doing. So sure.
Okay, well there you go. So an interesting one here from Retri. One takeaway is that Toon really wants AGL Rathwell to get a Super EZA, but
he deserves to have a busted Super EZA.
I mean, yeah.
Call it a character flaw. I just don't like to. I just kind of like to experience stuff on global when it happens. Like I'll cover stuff when it drops on JP, but for the most part, I just once I cover it, I kind of just tune it out until it shows up. So
tune it out.
I think that's if I was a global player, that's what I would do because I want to fully experience.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Like I say, I did a couple of videos when they dropped, but then obviously since then I've not done anything with him. And it is something that I am looking forward to actually getting him myself and then trying him out on all of these different builds and stuff.
What I would say
I want to experience the happiness of trying him out for the first time, then learning there's the problem here, there's an issue there, learning how each of the events play out. I just like doing that.
I have so much fun using Broly. I think that Broly is personally to me probably the most fun anniversary unit. In terms of like my personal enjoyment, just like I said this, I don't know if I said it off camera before we started, but I just think characters that do additionals are usually the characters that end up being the most fun because you see all these attacks and you're just relentlessly attacking. And Broly's I would say Broly's the hardest hitting character in the game, right? If I'm not mistaken, when he's transformed, especially. So like you see these Broly setups and he's just doing so much, and then defensively still very good. I don't think Broly lives every super attack particularly, but he gets really close to that. So post super attack, of course. I'm pretty sure Broly lives every super attack in the game once he gets his super attacks off though. He's just really good. Very, very, very good character. I think he's also extremely underrated. I also think the Gammas are underrated too, but that's just another topic.
I agree with that, but that is another topic. I will say on that in the regard of like talking about like having wanting the global stuff first, or not wanting global stuff first. You know what I mean? Like wanting to
experience it on your own first.
Experience it first. Yeah, I know we keep bringing up the sync, but like. Genuinely, right? Like that will be a huge benefit, right? Of when the sync happens is that obviously then we won't even have that issue. Because I mean, I know for me, funny enough, like besides the other benefits that JP has had throughout the years, in terms of obviously having the option of playing global or JP. I mean, I know for me, that's a big reason why I play JP, is because I'm like, well, dog, I ain't trying to wait 6 months to see the new unit in my box. I want them as soon as they come out. And I don't know, maybe that says something to me, like being a little impatient or something. But like,
well, I mean, that's the thing. It's kind of like from the global player perspective as well. It's a long time ago, like a few years ago. Global was always basically 6 months behind JP. And even before the sync was announced, over the last couple of years, that window has slowly but surely gotten smaller and smaller, especially for things like quality of life upgrades. Sometimes those are only like weeks apart. But the one major exception is the anniversary, because it's on a specific date. So for global, having to wait 6 months after the anniversary on JP is probably one of the biggest irritations, I guess, of being a global player, right? Because you just have to wait so long for those units to come to global.
Bro, thank God we don't play FGO. Oh my gosh, those boys, they have to wait literal years for stuff to come out to global.
Wild.
Like, that's how disconnected they are. Yeah, like my buddy is literally like, he like plans out his summons for FGO because he plays the game pretty religiously. And he's like, yeah, like in about 2 years, I'm going to be summoning for this character. I started saving for him a little bit ago. I'm like, dude, what? Like, I can't even comprehend it, bro. I don't have enough patience, I don't think, to be like, dang, bro, I couldn't do it. I don't think I could do it, man. But crazy. Either way, right? It is wild. I think that when it comes down to it, right, in terms of, like that whole aspect of things, I think that will be fantastic for the game, because not only will it just be like, well, now, we'll be able to experience stuff together, right, on both versions. But I mean, I guess this aspect kind of applies more so for the YouTubers who like cover the content on the game, but then it's like, oh, well, now you guys aren't going to have to like basically tiptoe around like looking at information about the characters, because you want to like, have the basically authentic experience, right, of, like pulling them and then using them. Now it'll just be, like everybody will just be all together, and, you won't have to worry about it anymore. So I think that aspect of it is really cool. And definitely something that I'm excited for global players. Like, it's so funny because like, it realistically, I suppose at the end of the day, it technically doesn't even like affect me really, I guess, because I play JP, but it's still like, dog, as a member of the community and, somebody who just like cares about this kind of stuff, obviously I see the value in it. And of course, a lot of the homies play global. So of course it's like, we want, even though we clown on global all the time, I know I'm definitely, definitely a person who clowns on global quite a bit, right? I'll be the first to tell you that. I still want to see the game do good, right? It's like we do these things and we clown on it because we care, rather than it being like, oh, I hate this thing, so I'm going to be, rotten about it or whatever you would call it. So I don't know. Either way, I know it's a bit of a side tangent, but I'm just excited for both versions to be able to, finally like be able to experience the fun stuff right when it comes out. Because especially like with the last thing I'll say about it is just like, especially being, I swear every episode I talk about Gohan Beast. I could not have imagined being a global player and then seeing that come out on JP. I think I would have switched right then and there, bro. Because, obviously, like, especially if it's like your favorite character and they have the.
Not gonna lie, that was pretty rough.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's one of those we've said in the past, right? Like when you've got an account, like if you're a global player and you've been playing global for like, 5-6 years and you've spent money and all this kind of stuff, it's like when people say just switch to JP, it's like, yeah, no, that's not an option. So it has been hard waiting for those anniversary characters, but we're only about a month and a half away now, so the clock is ticking. We will be getting there soon enough. But yeah, maybe once global players have gotten a chance to use Broly a bit, maybe more people will come around for this take. The general consensus seems to be that whilst we do think Broly is better, it's not by a huge amount. So whilst we may not agree with the take, it's not like an overall massive L. We'll check the poll here and the poll in chat. It's fairly even. It's 40% W, so almost half and half. Global likes to. Well, I keep saying global instead of other words. Global player moment, but YouTube likes to not round completely up to 100%. So it's 40% W, 59% L. So close to being half and half, which is not too bad overall. So shout out to Retri for the take. And we will go ahead and move on now back to the final segment of the show, which is you guys and your shout outs, comments, donations, all of that stuff. So shout out to everyone who has contributed for this episode. We all appreciate your contributions. And I will go through the list here now. So we have Sokado with the $5 super chat. He says, Gohan seems to have a habit of robbing Part 2 LR spots. Cough, worldwide download celebration 2023, cough. Because, of course, we all remember the community was, certain that we were going to get LR Rose as a Part 2 LR for the worldwide celebration. We were all hoping, with Part 1 being a Super and Extreme, that Part 2 would be Super and Extreme. And of course, we got Trunks, which was probably expected to be alongside Rose. And then Future Gohan, which was a shock. And I think a lot of people, unfortunately, underrated or hated on Gohan unnecessarily because he wasn't Rose. But that Future Gohan was really, really good. So, and then of course,
it quickly got overturned when they realized, he has 80% reductions.
Yeah, and that cool, the what if active skill and everything. So, yeah, STR Future Gohan was really good. And then, of course, we did eventually get a new Rose, a hit or miss with determining whether people how people feel about him. I still think he's massively. I still think he's massively underrated.
I hate him. No, I hate you. I can't wait till he gets in GP, and I'm like physical unit, and he just dies.
I can't wait till we get the anniversary stuff and I can dominate with him and show everybody else's skill issues. But
oh my goodness, I can beat the events with a Cyberman, buddy. It's not when it does that. The point. The point is.
But yeah, I think he is very much like kind of we talked about Gohan, right? He's a very RNG sort of heavy character because I've had I've tried to use him as new content's been coming out to kind of show what I like about him as a unit, and I have managed to get on the odd occasion those crazy turns where you use his transformation and those additionals actually do convert into supers, and then he's dropping 5 or 6 super attacks, and the last one is over 20 million attack stat, and he's rocking over 2 million defense and all of this stuff. So he can certainly be very fun.
Okay, I will say if they do update the domain to have them all work at the same time, then we'll talk. However, I just don't would I ever want to actually transform him, because he'll have the 30% reduction, and that's probably going to be safer than transforming him and getting to 2 more.
I mean, the thing is, on the teams that you're potentially running him on, depending on whether you have target abilities, scouters, anything like that, he's living everything that isn't a super. So I mean, well, if he's, I guess he'll be. Would he live a Gogeta normal? He would live. He's got 2 million defense. So, but yeah, anyway. So yeah, Gohan, another spot 2 LR that people would have liked to see someone else. Poor Kid Buu. Maybe one day LR Kid Buu will come to be. So then we have a super chat from Derek, which is about the LR Ultimate Gohan. Says, I love the art so much, but it makes me sad it's limited to such low resolution in Dokkan. I wish they would give the option to download HD card assets.
Yo, whoever just said that, you're my goat.
We talked about this before. Imagine the size of the game. It'd be cool if it was optional, right? Because I know some people literally wouldn't be able to play the game if it wasn't.
That should be a thing, though, honestly.
But yeah, imagine the size of the game if you did that. But I mean,
I recently had the option. I didn't even realize I had it, but on Duel Links, that's one of the other gacha games that I was super invested in from the start. You can download all the HD versions of all the cards, and y'all know Yu-Gi-Oh is a massive game with a massive card collection. So yeah, it was a pretty sizable upgrade, but the fact that it was optional was very nice. So for people with low-end devices, they don't have to. For people who want to play in pristine 4K, they have the option to. So I mean, I don't. Dokkan is a little bit different because it's not, it's got more assets in motion. Yu-Gi-Oh is just a card game with stills, so it's not exactly the same. But yeah, it was really nice to learn that I could do that.
Yeah, and Honkai Star Rail's pretty cool too. Does
Oh, yeah.
You don't even have the only PNG in the game is they're like alt basically. They don't even use PNG.
Those even have anything to do with this or downloading. I just think it's a cool game.
That's crazy.
Well,
I will
hate
say
you.
though, the other thing that is kind of like really unfortunate too about like from the aspect of the art. Obviously, this is a little bit like disconnected from it being in game in terms of it being like when you look in your box and you look at the card art. But the thing that does kind of stink too is that like just in terms of having like an HD PNG of the character's art, if you just wanted it for like your wallpaper or something, obviously there are people in the community who make like HD versions of cards, and you know they like use different upscaling techniques to be able to make it more HD. Some people even redraw them, right? Just because you know it's like realistically redrawing it would honestly be the best way to get it in HD. But the thing that stinks in terms of just like having the HD PNG of the character is that the only way that you get that is if they become a story asset. And obviously not every unit ends up getting story assets for all of their card art, because it depends on if the character's like art actually appears in their event, right? So obviously with Ultimate Gohan, since he's just a yellow coin LR and he doesn't have his own event, right? His art is not going to have its own story asset because, of course, you know, there's nowhere for it to actually appear in the game. Whereas, you know, like if we've been talking about Broly this podcast, you know, like with Broly, his arts are in HD because they appear in his Dokkan event, right? Like in the little in-between sections where he's talking. So that aspect of it too, you know, I'm Dokkan assets, bro. I got to talk about the assets. You know, like I think that aspect of it too is just like kind of unfortunate. That's like, dang, even if we just wanted the art in HD just in general, you really couldn't even get it. Technically, the only way to get official HD art, kinda, which sounds so weird to say, would be to literally like get a physical copy of V-Jump and then scan the page inside, and then like get it that way, because the art in the V-Jumps, because I have a bunch of V-Jump magazines, but the art in there for all the Dokkan units is always very high quality. But obviously, that's kind of a big ask, you know? You know, I don't know. Like, I'll just show you the page too, just for the sake of it. In the chat there, I put it in. Like, that art, right, looks pretty good. Because you can tell that's a little bit more high quality printed on the page. Obviously, it would look even better on the actual physical piece of paper, right? And not just like, you know, the picture of it from Twitter. But either way, you know, my point is that it's just kind of unfortunate that they could always share it via line. Yeah, that's a great idea, Proton. Honestly, like
they don't do it more often. They should. I don't know.
Yeah, they should. They don't really do that too often. Like with, I know obviously this is a JP player thing with the Line app, but when it comes to like Line, right? Obviously, that's the way that you get the stones. But then because Line is a messaging app, they have like a little thing where you can like message Dokkan Battle. It's not really that deep. The more like the long and the short of it is basically like, you know, yeah, they give you stones, and then whenever there's like something to promote on Dokkan, sometimes they'll send you like a little like, hey, buddy, you know, here's what's new in the game. But they don't do it often enough for it to be like a really significant thing, right? Like if I'm looking at it right here, let me see it. So like to show you an example of this, right? Like obviously this thing, let me turn down the brightness a little bit. This is the newest thing, right? With like the new Red Zone little thing that we got, which I'm sure probably some of you saw that notice on Twitter. And then you can see the last message was a little bit of text, and then literally the anniversary, because that's Gohan Beast. So like, you know, they don't really like send you updates. There's a little thank you. I think that was for the end of the year.
I guess
you know,
really
so
for Dual Dokkan Fest, it seems like what it's going to be, or major celebrations.
Yeah, but it would be cool because that would be an awesome way for them to push out the art, you know, and then obviously we would be able to get our hands on it and share it in the community. Obviously, again, that doesn't solve the issue of it being like in game. Which is really, you know, like the real problem at hand, I guess. But just in general, having the art in HD, that would be like a an easy solution, but they just don't do it. And we know they have it too, because all the time we see when we've never seen the HD art before, they just, you know, whip it out of nowhere half the time and then post it on like certain things, whether it be sometimes on Twitter or like in VJump or whatever. And it's like, dog, just do it for every unit. People would love that. And it'd be so easy to just make it into a tweet every time, right? Like here's the high quality art or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, so it would be nice to, and it would be nice to have these be more available, but yeah, it's a shame. If it's optional for in-game, that'd be cool for people that want it, but it's something that people have talked about for a long time. Maybe it'll happen one day, maybe not.
And fix the stinky sprites, please. I'm literally on my hands and knees. I'm begging you, bro.
But yeah, shout out to Derek for that one. Shout out to Philip Rodriguez for the 5 gifted memberships. I appreciate you, my dude. We also have Drace re-upping his membership, channel member for 32 months. Damn. He says goated podcast with the Super Saiyan 4 Cyberman emotes. Also hashtag Firefly HSR. I don't know what that is.
Minato just left. That's so funny that was somebody just left. It's a new character.
Ah, right. Okay.
That's so funny. Quick, move on before he gets back.
And then we have Drace with the $5 super chat. What if Tanabata is Planet Namek Saga? Part 1 could be LR base Goku into Super Saiyan, and Global could also get Frieza. And then part 2 is Final Form Frieza, and Global also gets the LR Ginyu Force.
No, another Goku, please.
Who is this? Amatsu? Is it Amatsu
Piccolo versus Frieza? Easy slam dunk.
Wait, what was it?
Tanabata Namek Saga. Part 1, LR base Goku into Super Saiyan, and Global also gets Frieza. And part 2 is Final Form Frieza, and Global also gets the LR Ginyu Force. I'm assuming this is for like if Tanabata was next on Global, basically.
I mean, that wouldn't be a bad idea. I wouldn't mind it. I think that Frieza Saga getting a major celebration this year makes sense. I'd be fine with it. And then we can get a Goku that'll work well with I guess Tekka LR Ultimate Gohan. Because I think we need a Kaioken Goku. When's the last time we got a Kaioken Goku? 7 years, right? We had never had a Dokkan Festival Final Form Frieza though. So what I want ideally is worldwide actually, but
yeah, that's so crazy too.
Seems like worldwide is going to be GT. So
yeah, I think it is.
I've seen people say that, but I don't know why.
Wait, what?
I'm not sure what the seems like it's going to be. Like,
so,
why?
Based on what?
What happened is Rick posted a tweet where they updated the, the 4th anniversary where we had the cracked Dragon Balls, the Black Star Dragon Balls.
Oh yeah.
They updated the text for that, and then so that's
How do you check that?
I don't know.
In
Rick
game.
found it out. It's in
He
game.
literally just looked in game because
Yeah.
you know how it's
Yeah,
like
sorry.
when you summon Shinron, like when you gather the Dragon Balls for like the missions. He just looked at the text and the text got updated.
Yeah.
How do you think to look?
Because
I don't
Rick's the
know.
goat.
Rick's
Because he's the goat, bro.
And
There's
then-
nothing more to say.
Another thing is that we know there's going to be some big GG celebration because they're going to add the GT bosses Posh Rush. That's going to be a thing eventually.
Yeah, true.
Right?
Yeah.
Like just like we got
Also,
the movies version.
Not to mention, if I may throw my figure collecting hat in the ring.
Yeah.
We
I saw
do
yours.
know that.
Yeah.
Yes, they like to push. They kind of like to push sometimes like similar merchandise. Sometimes there's like method to the madness, and sometimes they're not. But recently, especially with SH Figure Arts, they have been really pushing GT stuff heavy.
Okay.
Yeah, we literally got
There's
like
a bunch of figures going to be for the rest of the year, right?
we got we now have SH Figure Arts GT Goku, GT Pan, GT Trunks, Super 17, and Super 17 also got another figure with another GT Goku. So they've been pushing GT a little bit, just kind of like out of nowhere. So it honestly would not surprise me if that's what happened.
It could be Tanabata, but I would not assume Tanabata would be GT twice.
Yeah,
I'm not
twice in a
ready
row.
to. I'm not ready to buy into this yet. I'm totally down if it is GT because I love me some Super Saiyan 4. But I'm gonna hold on to my Tournament of Power theory for just a little bit longer.
My theory is I could see like Namek Saga being because I just want a Final Form Frieza Dokkan Fest. So if Namek Saga is Tanabata, I would be a little disappointed. But at least I just want at least a transforming Final Form Frieza into full power Frieza. As long as I get that, and then like transforming Kaioken Goku into Super Saiyan Goku, that'd be a banger Tanabata to me regardless. So yeah,
You know,
I trust myself.
I will say in terms of what do you call it? The whole
Namek?
thing with Tanabata being Namek, yeah. This is an idea that I brought up. I think I brought it up on the podcast before. I'm pretty sure. One thing that I really, really want Dokkan to do, and I don't know if they'll like genuinely ever actually do this, but I just think it would be cool. This idea was inspired by shout out to the Goat Starter Shooters, rest in peace. The JoJo Gotcha game that got shut down after like 8 years, I think, something crazy like that. Basically, in the game, they had the concept of versus cards, where it was essentially like, it was like on the card art, it was the two characters fighting. So, right, like in the context of JoJo, you know, you had like Jotaro and Dio, you had Giorno and Diavolo, you know, like stuff like that, right? Where it was basically the main fights in the series had like a card where it was the fight as the card, right? Like it wasn't one single character, or like obviously they had cards where like it was characters working together, you know, like Jotaro and Kakuin, or you know, like Mista and Giorno or whatever. But I think that that's a really cool idea to be able to make some more like unique cards. I think the thing that I would kind of wonder is how Dokkan would execute it, because obviously when it comes to Stardust shooters, excuse me, the gameplay is a lot different, because it was more like, you know, like pogs, like those little things that like, you know, the little like circle things, they kind of like that is kind of how it was. Basically you like slide the little circle across the map and bounce around and then hit the other circles on the map. And then like you could activate the super midway through and like hit the things. But the basic idea of how it worked was just that like the enemies got caught up in the middle of the battle between you know, like the two characters who were fighting in the card. And I think that concept is really cool. And not to mention, it would also allow for some really awesome like pairs of characters who wouldn't necessarily maybe be paired up. Like obviously we have a Goku and a Frieza already. Of course, that's the context of the Tournament of Power, right? Obviously with Namek, it would be them fighting. But you know, you could have like a Goku and Cell, right? From the Cell games, or of course Gohan and Cell, right? I mean, obviously from the Buu Saga, you could have Goku and Majin Vegeta duking it out, right? You could have Super Saiyan 3 Goku and Fat Buu, you know, duking it out. Whatever, you get the point, right? It's like, I think that could be a really cool way, if done right, to be able to not only revisit some cards where it's like, bro, I really don't think that we need another unit of this in the game, you know, to basically make it more of like a unique thing. But also then, you know, they could definitely, you know, I don't know, just give some more love to some of these celebrations where it's like, it's almost like kind of in between, where it's like, I feel like we have a lot from it, but it's like the main thing, there's already so much of it, and the side things that they could do from it aren't necessarily as hype as the main thing. And I feel like that would be a way to revitalize it and, you know, be able to make a card out of the main thing again, you know, and then obviously give some of these side things that are a part of it a little bit of love. So I don't know. It's just an idea that I've had for a long time from that I think would be really cool.
My idea for that kind of thing was Goku and Jiren, where Goku
that'd be cool too.
Goes into a standby, prepares, like it's like Goku and Jiren and they're fighting, and then Goku goes to the standby to prepare the spirit bomb. Then Jiren comes in and he's like, I will allow you to make the spirit bomb. And then like he like guards all attacks that the enemy's gonna try and throw at him. And then after when Goku throws a spirit bomb, he goes UI, and then it's like, I don't know, something like that for like the Goku Jiren fight could be kind of cool.
For like versus cards, it'd be cool as well. Like I think we must have talked about this on a previous episode, I think a while ago, but because I remember you saying about it, and like one of the things I think that could work would be kind of cool is they could work it so that like the animations for the characters would be you could even have like, say for example, you had like Gohan versus Cell as just one of the examples. You could have parts of the animations be like them fighting each other, but like they're, say for example, when Gohan like kicks Cell, he goes flying into the enemy, and that's how they're getting hit. And then at the end of the animation, like they sort of jump or like teleport or whatever to either corner of the Cell Games arena and both do the Kamehameha, but the enemy is like in the middle. and then
That
it's
would be
getting hit
sick.
like in the middle of the beam clash, and then you can have like
That would be so
the
sick.
Vegeta versus Goku, like basically just have the super attack animations end with the enemy getting stuck in the middle of this like massive beam clash thing. Would be kind of cool. But
Yeah, I think that'd be sick.
yeah, got a little bit off topic there, but the Namek Saga for Tanabata would certainly be interesting. I know there's a lot of ideas flowing around in terms of these big celebrations. Namek Saga hasn't seen love for a while, so it'd be pretty cool. So shout out to Drace for that one. And shout out to Philip Rodriguez for the $10 super chat. They have to be aware of LR Kid Buu's absence. Could they be saving him for something big like Worldwide or the 10th anniversary? Popularity aside, he is the final boss of Z. If it was up to you, where would the meme end? I mean, if it was up to me, it would be over already. I mean, this celebration was the perfect opportunity. Because when are we going to get another Buu Saga celebration? I don't know.
Well, I mean, eventually we're gonna get one, right?
Yeah, well, at some point, but
at
it's
some
like
point.
not soon, right? But I was
mean-
gonna say, funny enough, he kind of asked the question. I was gonna say, when do you guys think that like legitimately a Buu would be appropriate in terms of like what kind of celebration? Like, do you think he would be perfect for like a like a worldwide like headliner as one of the dual units, or should he just be a yellow coin? Like, what do you think?
I think a Tanabata would be perfect, where we can get a, let's say, I don't know, a Super Saiyan 2 Vegeta that exchanges into Super Saiyan 3 Goku, and then we have Kid Buu as part 2 LR, right? Because we don't have an exchange Goku and Vegeta from the Buu Saga, if I'm not mistaken. That could be interesting, or they could just do like a Gotenks, like a DFE LR Gotenks. If we don't that.
Yeah, in terms of Toon, when do you think? When are we getting LR Kid Buu? If and when.
If it were up to me, this meme would have ended 5 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
I'm all for, making a joke out of, like shafting a character, making it funny, but it's 9 years, bro.
It's not even
not
a meme
funny
anymore.
anymore.
It's just sad.
It's just annoying. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It really is just sad.
Uh,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like even with the whole like thing of like obviously it's a little bit different because of course, we have Gohan Beast was like kind of just it was gonna happen regardless, but it's kind of funny because everybody was like, oh my gosh, where is he? When it was like, he was the next big character that should have gotten some unit, and then he didn't get one for a while, and then he finally got one. But it's so funny that like, even after all this time, there's been so many characters where we're like, yeah, this character needs a new unit, or this character needs something or other. And they still just don't do Kid Buu. Like it's like I don't know, man. Do they just have some kind of like vendetta against him? Do the devs hate him? I don't know. It's just so weird that like they haven't, especially considering that person hit the nail on the head that he is the final boss of Z. I think that's honestly the big thing.
yeah, exactly.
Oob is the final boss of Z.
I mean,
Take the side.
but yeah, hopefully soon the meme will end, but who knows? Like we say, we probably won't get a Buu Saga celebration for a little while now. So yeah, who knows? I mean, obviously they could do an anniversary theme of just being like, major villains and heroes or whatever, where they kind of just do whatever they want. But outside of that, because I mean, we could see things like Gogeta and Super Vegito, things like that, but they have their specific enemies, right? Like Super Vegito is always paired up with Buuhan, so it's unlikely we would get an LR Kid Buu in the same celebration that we get a Vegito. So I guess we shall have to wait and see.
We got Baby Saga Super Saiyan 4 Goku, and then we got Omega. So
Well, yeah, exactly.
True,
So that is
true.
true. Yeah, very true.
like I don't think it necessarily matters. But technically, off tangent, isn't Golden Frieza the last boss of Z? Because it's a Dragon Ball Z movie. Well, okay, go on.
I mean, I guess you could say that, but all right. So shout out to Philip Rodriguez for that one. Shout out to Drace for $5. He says, "Do you think the 10th anniversary will change the meta? Since next year we could possibly start seeing 200% leads EZA, starting with the 7th year LRs." I mean, the 7-year LRs we're pretty sure will, of course, EZA. I mean, they could not because they've been doing that for the next couple of anniversary or the last few anniversaries, but I mean, it's kind of crazy to think they're going to get an EZA because they're not as good as they were, of course, but like they're definitely not complete garbage. And the idea of them getting an EZA is kind of funny. I think in terms of other 200% leads, though, I don't think we would see them for a while, right? We still have so many like 170 Dokkan Fest leads that don't have EZAs.
I mean, you say so many, but it's like 12, 15.
Yeah, which is like a year plus in terms of,
Well, I mean, kind of.
potentially. I doubt we're
But
going to be
yeah.
getting more than one of those like a month kind of thing. I mean, a couple of them are dual
Are you
Dokkan Fests,
sure?
I know.
Like
but
Tanabata, we could see like multiple. Worldwide,
true.
we could see like 6 of them.
That'd be
maybe
insane just to
four
think
of them.
about the idea of getting to the point where 200% leaders are getting EZAs. That's crazy.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's gonna happen soon.
Yeah, it's
but
going to happen eventually. So yeah, I mean, 10th anniversary is going to be a big one. So if they're going to start doing it like a short time after the 10th anniversary is probably not an unrealistic expectation. So
I can't wait for the 300% leads, baby. He'll go crazy.
oh man. But yeah, that's an interesting one from Drace. We have another one for $2. It just says not related, but please read Boruto TBV. I don't know what that is, but not really been impressed with anything Boruto related that I've seen, but I'm not sure what TBV is. That the newest like spin-off manga thing? I'm not
think
sure.
so.
But yeah, then we have Talus
TBV?
TBV. I don't know.
I was
Also,
gonna say
I was
the
wrong.
abridged
We have-
something, but that's
We have like it's the newest Boruto where it's like a time skip.
Okay.
But
Oh.
yeah, I counted again. We have like 20. So to be fair, 20, 120%.
Okay.
So
So
170%. I mean, so we're still a little bit away, more than I thought. But
still a ways away. So then we have a super chat from Talus for the £10. Shout out to my UK boy. How do you feel about worldwide celebration being Extreme versus Super? Part 1, Dokkan Fest Super Saiyan 3 to Super Saiyan 4 GT, and then Carnival Full Power Bojack, and Part 2, Dokkan Fest Baby
Whoa.
Vegeta, and Carnival Super Saiyan 1 to Super Saiyan 2
You're so
Gohan.
random.
That's so random, but I kind of like that.
So it's kind of
my
like, it's
idea-
basically Baby versus Goku and Gohan versus Bojack as like the
My-
worldwide. It's interesting.
My idea is just Super Saiyan 4 Goku plus Baby, then Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta plus Sin that transforms to Omega.
Yeah, I could see that because I mean it would be a cool time to get a new Super 17, but then it's like, who do you do opposite him if you've already done like Super Saiyan 4 Goku, right? Like no one's
Yeah,
going to
I
care
would've-
about Dokkan Fest LR like base GT Goku that does the Dragon Fist, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I guess
um,
it could be a thing where it's like maybe part 1 is like dual Dokkan Fest, Baby and Goku, and then part 2 is like GT Goku and 18 versus the new 17. But I would presume the LR Super 17 that exists, he would get his EZA.
Yeah.
anyway, so
yeah.
it's not a big deal.
But yeah, I mean it's an interesting pairing because obviously they're not really related at all. But I mean, Super Saiyan 4 Goku versus Baby and Super Saiyan 2 Gohan versus Bojack are definitely dual characters that people want to see get newer versions. I mean, obviously for the Goku versus Baby, we still don't have the very first Super Saiyan transformation, Super Saiyan 4 transformation in the game. So
Yeah.
that's something that people have been waiting to see for quite some time. But yeah, I mean, I'd be down for that if it was Baby versus Goku and then Gohan versus Bojack. Whilst they're not, specifically related, I think that would be super cool. So who knows? They've done looser based themes before, right? So I guess we could see almost anything at this point. And the worldwide is an interesting place for them to do those kind of things, right? Especially with last year's one, we saw there being an imbalance between super and extreme units. So who knows? But we shall see. Another one from Talus here for the £2. I think World Tournament AGL Vegito will be the best EZA. I'm
AGL
trying to
Vegeta?
AGL
Vegito.
Vegito, the base one. I'm trying to remember what he even does.
Suck.
Yeah, isn't he
'Cause,
like a slot 1 that doesn't really have good defense and stuff? I'm trying to remember what he does, to be honest.
Yeah, it's like
I think
what
he has like a 70% dodge after attacking in slot 1 or something.
yeah, because it's what's it called? He gets. Let me read the kit. Yeah, great chance of evading enemy attacks, including super attack, as the first attacker and not as the first slot. So since it's the first attacker, that's when he's actually attacking.
Yeah, so I mean, they could, if they chose to, I guess, change the way it works with his EZA, so it is.
I mean, they could,
slot
but
one.
they
but they
didn't
don't
with the
usually
past
do that, yeah, do
characters.
they? So
Like the fifth anniversary characters, they didn't change it. So.
yeah,
Which is
so-
actually good for them, because I guess if they did change it, then you wouldn't be able to use their active skill in slot 3 and get their full passive in slot 1 and 2.
yeah, true.
But yeah.
But Yeah, so maybe not on that one, but then another one from Talus here. Physical Angel Freezer EZA. I think he just means in October, and he is number 1. I know our boy is a big fan of Physical Angel Freezer. He certainly could be good with his EZA for sure. Like now he's pretty much unusable, but like the skeleton of his kit is still pretty good. And I think his major one downside is that he has to get hit first to get the big defense buff and then the dodge chance. So obviously if you get unlucky and the first attack of the turn that he takes is a super, he could get taken out. But of course they could, with an EZA, give him something like the damage reduction before he attacks or something like that. And of course, I'm trying to think how many more of those they did, but is he the only unit that you can transform on turn 1? I can't remember. And then the golden freezer is quite different, so he certainly has a lot of potential.
Kibito Kai.
Ah, yes, yeah, with the fusion. So yeah, he certainly could be interesting. Physical Angel Freezer, another Otherworld Warriors buff. But yeah, we will have to wait and see, I suppose. So there you go. That is all of the contributions from today's episode. Shout out to everybody that was featured. We appreciate you guys giving support to the show. And with that brings us to the end of today's episode. So this was the Slot 1 Super Podcast, episode 38. Shout out to our special guest, of course, once again, Mr. TOONRAMI. Thank you for joining us. Always welcome, of course. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're, like I say, always welcome. And shout out to my fellow co-hosts, of course, Minato and Dokkan Assets, aka Theo. I've been the Master Ningen. Hope you guys have enjoyed the episode, and we will see you all again, same time next week. Peace out.
Have a good one.
What? Don't have a good one?
Have a good one.